There he is.
Hey, it's Mr. Giuseppe.
Hey, let's go live. And I don't know if I don't know where he is. He was the one who wanted to start. Oh, here he is.
There's Big Jim.
All right, let me
Big Jim.
start the countdown. Welcome to Need to Know live election coverage. As you can see, they're declaring states, Scorpio. That's the C-SPAN live. There he is. There he is. There's the boss.
Big Jim.
Well, you guys, I'll tell you, the Democrats are claiming they can lose Florida and lose Pennsylvania and still win, which tells me they're going to lose Florida and they're going to lose Pennsylvania. And we're just hearing that in a major precinct in downtown Atlanta, the black turnout has been paltry. And what this tells me is the following. The blacks would like to support Trump, but they're being told by Maxine Waters and others that they're damned if they vote for him. So they're not voting. And that means Biden's going to be left hanging out there. And the failure of blacks to come out to support Biden is going to be decisive.
Wow.
Can you believe that Pennsylvania has until November 12th to count its votes? And I just heard that, I don't know how many states, but several states are allowing mail-in votes to come in until November 6th. What's up with that?
Mississippi has just been called. You seem to already have it.
This is the C-SPAN interactive.
They're calling Missouri. They just called Missouri for Trump.
What an embarrassment that they're already calling Virginia for Biden.
Oklahoma, they've just called for Trump.
They called Virginia for Biden?
Yeah.
Look, it's blue.
I was just watching CBS News and they had it like neck and neck just a few minutes ago.
They just called Maine. They just called Maine for Biden. I'm looking at Fox while we talk. Biden will win 3 of Maine's 4 electoral votes. They divide them in Maine.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the 2 states.
Trump has also taken Kentucky. You've got that shown on your map. You don't have Missouri. He's going to take Florida and Pennsylvania, I have no doubt. But it looks like they're going to be massive cheating, massive theft in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Well, yeah, they have till November 12th to count the votes. Give me a break, man. What are they going to do
November 12th to manipulate the outcome.
I've never heard of such a thing.
Watch the screen. I'm going to post a picture that sums up how much integrity there is in these elections. Watch the screen. Look at that old guy looking at that guy. That's hilarious.
Very amusing.
And since when can mail-in votes actually arrive after the election is over? I've never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, it's supposed to be that they have been postmarked before the election. But it seems to me you can manufacture postmarks. You can counterfeit postmarks just as easily as you can anything else. Probably easier.
Well, sure. You can just get one of those Pitney Bowes stamper things, man.
Yeah, because postmarks are often very faint and difficult to read.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just shocking the level of corruption in the elections the last 30 years or so. You know, it's so obvious. All you need is a paper vote, and each party confirms the count and secure the votes. It's not rocket science. This whole scam of electronic voting has just opened the floodgates of deception.
Well, guys, I used to have a business where we did a lot of mailing, for our business. And if you have a Pitney Bowes stamp, mail-in machine, you can create your own postmark.
Right. That's right.
I mean, give me a break.
There you go, Scorpio. There you go. An obvious way to steal votes.
Oh, and by the way, CBS says that there's no such thing as voter fraud, so forget about that. It doesn't exist.
Listen to this. I thought they were calling North Carolina for Trump. He's leading by like 67-31.
Here you go. Heath Tolson is watching us, and the classic quote.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
Uncle Joe. It's showing Trump leading by a half of 49.9 to 49.2 in Florida.
Well, I can't believe they called Virginia for Biden already. I swear I was watching CBS literally 2 or 3 minutes ago.
It has to do
had it
with
at 48 to 49.
In Virginia.
Yeah, in Virginia. I mean, this is literally 5 minutes ago at the most. 48 to 49 is what they had it at.
Yeah, but remember, they call votes based upon their analysis of where the votes were cast and, what it means for the interpretation of the patterns they're expecting. I'm just looking right now, comparison with, the map we had today, and it looks, well, he was giving Florida to Democrats, which is all wrong, in my opinion. And
Joe Biden, 58,000 raw votes. President Trump with 13,000. That's going to change throughout the night here.
Can you turn the volume up on that?
North Carolina.
Turn the volume up on the Fox?
Oh, I thought that was the page that Giuseppe had up. There's no volume on the page that we have up, right?
Yeah, that's just their interactive
no.
Yeah.
counter.
Numbers there from 4 years ago, and right now too early really to get a measure. Well, the president's going to win this game.
Well, obviously my clean sweep hypothesis was falsified right off the bat.
It was a noble, wishful effort.
Yeah. Well, CBS said
I too much look at how,
trying to find the Loch Ness monster, so it doesn't exist. So just rest assured, both of you guys.
Oh, okay, I feel better. I feel a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I mean, I don't know. I'm really surprised about Virginia. I thought maybe
I was too, that it was called so immediately.
No.
I didn't expect that at all.
That's what's so strange. I mean, it was 48 to 49 5 minutes ago. How can they call it as a definite win for Biden? Bizarre.
Yeah, it's really
Could be a psyop, Scorpio. Calling it early to give us an impression that turns out ultimately to be false.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing on that screen.
They're noticing, by the way, in a number of areas, even though Biden is taking, the area, the county or whatever, that Trump has narrowed the gap, which means that he's doing overall better than he did in 2016, which we fully expect. I mean, look at all the accomplishments of the guy. Look at all the reasons why conservatives ought to be and the crowds are very enthusiastic about him. Nobody gives a tinker's damn about Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. Nobody cares about him.
Well, one thing that I found interesting on CBS News, they were saying that, a lot of state legislatures have changed the voting laws recently. And so it's all legitimate, and just don't worry about it. Yeah.
Change the voting laws, to benefit the Democrat candidate.
That's my guess. So Ryan Jay's calling a Trump victory at 319, baby. I hope he's right.
Let me put that up.
And what's the basis? What is his
He
basis?
asked, what number do you give Trump tonight for the win? Well, Ryan, I don't think anybody's going to win tonight based on all this mail voting fraud. Scorpio, you can tell us about how you heard some few states will declare tonight. It's crazy.
PBS NewsHour said that 16 states have committed to have a result by tonight. But it doesn't mean that's true. That's just what they said. It could be a bullshit.
16.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, 16. That's what they said. And by the way, 700 confirmed deaths because of Trump's super spreader events from COVID-19. They're all confirmed.
A bunch of horse shit.
He's a mass killer too.
There is so much silly stuff out there, Scorpio. It's unbelievable.
It's childlike, Jim. It really is. The level that they want adult human beings to think at is about maybe 6th or 7th grade.
No way, 6-year-old, man, not 6th or 7th grade. Way dumber.
Yeah, okay. We'll say grade school then. Yeah,
6 or 7 years old equivalent.
Yeah,
right. That's like 2nd grade, man. That's what their emotional level is. The wisdom level for these, especially these what do you call them? These Trump derangement syndrome types who they feel so bad for the blacks and they feel so bad for the gays, and their a level of emotional wisdom is like a Disney movie. It's so disgusting. They have no idea what the real world is about, yet they're going to change the world.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
For what?
For what? Yeah.
Yeah. To what?
To what?
They have no idea. Well, I think also, was it Stalin or Lenin that called them useful idiots? That's exactly what we're dealing with.
That's what they are.
You might want to go to a different map. That map looks pretty slow. Whose map is that? Is that's
C-SPAN? They're cautious. I could go to the one on well, actually Bing's the same thing. Well, I don't know. Do you want me to switch to a network?
Are we allowed to?
Well, I got Fox here at my elbow.
I mean, we
the
could
major network.
What's the URL, Jim? FoxNews.com?
Yes.
I think as long as we don't stay on it all the time, we shouldn't have a problem.
Yeah, we can flip around too. It'll be an interesting mind trick.
There's a box there, see on the lower right there that says live.
Won the state by 100,000 votes in 2016. There are some observers throughout Florida today that are looking deep into these numbers, and they think he can ultimately win this state perhaps by 3 points. If that's the case, you're up 300,000 votes in Florida, and then we would move to a different contest, perhaps up here in Georgia, to see whether or not the Southeast stays red in 20.
That's the
I think these guys are doing a better job.
Thanks, Bill. So as results continue to come in tonight, let's bring in Tucker Carlson, host of Tucker Carlson.
Wonderful.
Tucker, great to have you with us. It's 8:15 on the East Coast. What are your thoughts as you look at what we've heard so far?
Kind of not what we were told to expect. I'm especially interested in Florida. It does look like the president's got a very good shot of winning. But I'm interested in this because elections tell you what the parties actually look like, not what you imagine they look like, but you find out who voted for them. So the coalitions become really clear. And in Florida, the population center, of course, Miami-Dade County, biggest county in the state. Hillary Clinton 4 years ago got 334,000 votes there. An hour ago, with 84% reporting, Donald Trump had already outstripped that by more than 100,000 votes. Now, Miami-Dade is 70% Hispanic. That's not what you would have expected if you've been watching for the past 6 months, this attempt to racialize everything, to make Trump the greatest racist in world history. You would expect, whether you buy that or not, you would expect that that would depress the votes for Trump in Miami-Dade County. But the opposite happened. He's doing better there with non-white voters than he did 4 years ago. Now, I'm not exactly sure why that is. I suspect, the BLM message is a mixed blessing. It doesn't appeal to all voters in the same way, and it turns some off. And some of those are Hispanic voters. But we'll figure it out in the coming weeks. But the obvious lesson is this is not what people predicted. This morning, the New York Times, Nate Silver had the president's chances of winning Florida at 31%. So you have to kind of wonder, how did that, these are smart people. They have access to all the data. They've thought about this deeply. It's their job to think about it. How could they be that wrong on the day of the election? And I'm not quite sure I know the answer, but at some point, we, the media, need to pause and ask ourselves serious questions about how we're thinking through what's going to happen and how we present it, because our predictions affect outcomes to some extent, and they also, of course, determine our credibility. People judge us based on our predictions. And so something really went wrong in the way we predicted a number of these races. And let me just restate something really quick. Florida is the future of the country, not simply because it's multi-ethnic, which obviously it is, but because that's where people are moving.
Yeah.
Wow, Biden got 75% of the votes in Delaware. Wow.
Americans moving from state to state, they're moving to Florida.
What's his state?
And so it does tell you something about where we're going. And I think if you're a Republican or a Trump voter, it tells you something more hopeful than you expected.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the key is that Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and we're starting to get more and more of that vote in. Florida, the Trump people feel confident about at this hour.
Yeah.
But Georgia, North Carolina, question marks. If it's part of his path to 270, he can clearly get there. It's not as big a window as the Trump people wanted, I think, at the beginning.
Wow, Biden's going to take Kansas too? Jeez.
Certainly, if you live in the world that I live in,
they haven't been called, have they?
The world, the political.
Well, he's 10 points up.
No, that means nothing.
The president had any chance.
Scorpio, those are just early votes. That means
Those
nothing.
are just early numbers,
depending on
this was going to be
precincts have been counted. You look for the checks.
You don't know the outcome. And I think it's always been
right. Well, Biden took Massachusetts. Oh no, I see. Okay,
not what people thought it was last night. And again, you have to ask yourself, why is that? Why is the demonstrated reality so different from what purportedly smart people said it was going to be? And again, I don't know the answer to that, but we're going to have mountains of data. This is the second election in a row that people paid to get it right apparently got it wrong. And I just think it's important to learn from your mistakes, and I hope that we do. I really do, and take them seriously. Like, well, how do we screw it up? We, in effect, lied to people. How did that happen?
With the Hispanic vote, Tucker, when I look across the tabs on a number of states, it looks like the president, and this is obviously very early looking at this data, it looks like he's doing better with Hispanics than with African-American voters, at least in the states that we have seen coming in so far, and that could change throughout the evening. But what everybody, the sort of conventional wisdom on Florida is, oh, well, that's just the Cuban vote, and Cubans are Republicans. Right. That's what we've been hearing over and over again. Do you think that holds up to be true, or do you see this Hispanic trend being broader than that across the country?
Well, I would just say two things. Again, Donald Trump did better in Florida, in Miami-Dade, 70% Hispanic county this year than he did 4 years ago. Florida is actually less Cuban. The Hispanic population of Florida is, just to be precise about it, since you ask, is less Cuban than it was 4 years ago. And it is a very diverse community. Not everyone we call Hispanic is, from the same culture, has the same views, obviously. And we should always be clear about that and not pretend that all people of any group are the same, because they're definitely not. I think it's interesting that the emphasis from the leaders of the Democratic Party for months has been on race and racism. And the conversation we've been having as a country has been about racism. You would expect, and their intent, of course, the whole point of this was to affect political outcomes. It's really remarkable, no matter what the final result is, that this president, specifically this one, denounced every day as a racist, is doing better with non-white voters. And again, I do think that the BLM message is clearly very appealing to a lot of white suburban voters. It's clearly very unappealing to a lot of non-white voters. Who expected that?
Yeah, we've got a call real quick. Stand by.
I think that's a nice point.
The state of Indiana.
Well, plus there's no such thing as Hispanic. It doesn't mean anything.
We can make that call.
No, they've called Indiana for Trump.
Projecting that
on email, the conservative website
mentioned,
Town Hall
BLM
is
earlier,
calling
but you talked
Trump for
about
Florida.
boarding
That would
up
be great.
of,
Yeah, he's gonna get Florida.
kind of
What they were reporting there was very substantiating of that
We are
result.
place, and I guess what I'm struck by is how readily and passively we've accepted it. I mean, this is a great and free country filled with courageous and decent people. Why for a second would we put up with the assumption that we need to hunker down and protect ourselves from violence on an election day? It's very distressing, and it's not a partisan point at all. I'm just saying that as someone who's lived in this country for 51 years. We shouldn't have to fear violence. We should be brave in the face of threats. And it is something very kind of bewildering and sad to see that. And you just hope that your children and your grandchildren won't grow up in a country where it's taken for granted that you need to hide inside or arm yourself or close the liquor stores or put plywood over your windows on election day. That is the rule in the third world. I've covered elections in disordered, violent countries, and everyone does what they're doing in Georgetown, where I partly grew up, by the way. I know the neighborhood very well. Everyone does that in a lot of other countries. You don't want that here. And I don't know exactly what the answer is. And again, I'm not making a partisan point. There are certainly partisan points to be made, but I'll skip it on election night. I want to make it a point as an American, which is that's not acceptable. You don't want to live in that country, and whatever it takes to fix that, we should do. I think it probably begins with the expectations of our leaders. Violence is never an acceptable or legitimate form of political expression, ever. And I don't care what they say on Twitter. I don't care what they suggest from the podium. That is totally wrong, and we should never put up with it, for real.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was too slow an evolution to come to that conclusion over the course of the summer. And we saw things sort of, allowed in places like Portland and Seattle. And that sort of set the tone for what we then saw in all of these other cities. And then Democrats started to play catch up, Tucker, at the DNC when they saw some numbers coming back that showed, no, actually, Americans do not want to get to the point where they go, oh yeah, I guess we're going to board up the windows again for whatever's coming down the pike. It's not normal, as you aptly point out.
No, and the assumption behind it is just so poisonous that people of a certain color or poor people like violence or will accept violence. No, all people, no matter what they look like, or no matter what they make, despise disorder, chaos, violence. It's a threat to the things they care about most, their families. It's always wrong. The law and order, not repression, but law and order, literally order. These are laws, we obey them. This is order. We stay within these lines because we've learned over thousands of years we need to if we want to preserve society. That message resonates with everybody, everyone. Every human being wants that. And I don't know why we've gone through this kind of mass psychosis where both parties kind of lost faith in that. But it's always true in every country, in every moment. And I do think the results tonight, when you disaggregate them, when you break out the numbers, you will see that a lot of voters who wouldn't have voted for Trump under any other circumstance may have voted for him tonight because they were really horrified by what they saw in our cities over the summer.
Trump, if President Trump loses tonight,
yes,
why would he lose?
He would lose partly, I believe, well, probably many reasons. And, if he loses, I mean, I always tell my children this, when you lose, blame yourself first. Don't blame other people. Blame yourself first. I think that's morally important for all of us, not just for politicians. But I would say there are a lot of reasons, and they're obvious. I do think the coronavirus, the administration's response to it, also the political uses of it, it was used as a partisan cudgel, had an effect. I think the general feeling that things are out of control, and I actually don't think that's primarily the president's fault, but we could debate it. It doesn't matter. The incumbent will always suffer if people feel like, wow, what's going on? Why doesn't someone restore order? This is scary. I don't know. The future makes me anxious. That feeling will always hurt the guy who's up for re-election, because every election, and any strategist will tell you, is a very simple question. Do you want more of the same, or do you want something different? And in a time of anxiety, people instinctively say, I want to change the channel. I want something different. So it's probably a bunch of different things, but I think the theme is what I just said.
And if he wins, conversely.
And if he wins, of course it'll be, look, I don't like what's happening now, but these people are really scary. I mean, they're really scary. Really? Look, Republicans held both the legislative branch and the executive for 2 years in 2016. And they didn't make that many changes, but they made no structural changes. They didn't change the system at all. We're looking, if there's a Democratic sweep, at Democrats in the first year changing the Electoral College, changing the voting age, changing the number of states we have, changing the Supreme Court. I mean, changing the fundamentals, changing our system itself. And I think most people, even Democrats, are conservative, small c conservative, and they fear radical change. This is like a pretty good country, actually, despite its faults. Do you really want to tamper with the formula to overthrow the system that served us for 250 years? I think most people, if you calm down and maybe took Trump out of it, would say, no, I don't really want that. But that's what we could get. And I think it has scared people.
But Tucker, ironically, Joe Biden, I think, prevailed in the primary because he represented a return to normal. People saying, I would like the establishment back, please. Thank you very much. I was okay with it.
I think that's right.
And in the reality, as you point out, that may or may not be what they end up getting. And they may or may not decide that they.
That's a really great point.
I think that's really smart. And a lot of this, certainly me, I missed this completely.
I missed the point.
Missed what Biden.
The point is, the blonde woman said
right. I mean,
a lot of people are backing Biden because they want to return to normal and they view the establishment as the norm.
In both 2016 and
even though what they're going to get isn't a return to the good old days.
Right.
People like Mike Bloomberg.
Yeah, that's Martha McCollum. She has a show called The Story.
Oh, okay.
People like that said, no Bernie Sanders. So Biden was the default. And I think, and I've known Biden for 30 years, and anyone who knows him will tell you he's a warm
Tucker's
person.
talking as if Trump is lost?
But I don't
think they asked him if he lost, why would he have lost?
Tucker, as
okay.
always,
Yeah, it was a question. Yeah.
Polls closing in just a few minutes.
Keep it here.
Quick break. We'll be
A
right back.
hypothetical.
Is that a swing?
Mitch McCollum has been reelected in Kentucky by a substantial margin. That is a good sign.
You exercise.
That's a good sign.
Yeah.
So no sense watching their commercials. Let me refresh this. Yeah. So
Rush Limbaugh is saying the election will be like 2016, with the conventional wisdom once again being proven wrong. And that's certainly the way it's starting to look right now as our map unfolds, very similar to the map we examined today on the show.
Nico's mom has an interesting question. Didn't Fox News call the election early for Hillary in 2016?
And then they had to walk it back. Didn't they have to walk it back?
I think so. I think that's true. I'm not sure though.
I do remember somebody was walking it back. I remember they were like, oh, we might be wrong. Oh, they were eating a lot of crow.
I thought it was CNN, not Fox.
Oh, okay. One of them did. Yeah, one of them were like, and
that was great when Wolf Blitzer almost started crying. That was one of the best moments I've ever seen on television.
Or when all the weak-minded MSNBCers were crying.
look how bad this map is. They don't even have Missouri being shown definite. And I think the pink are ones they're claiming are inclining. But they should see, and Maine has already been called, and it's blue. I would go back to Fox, Giuseppe, and just
it's on the commercial. There's no reason to watch a commercial.
No, I know. But I would put out the sound so we can talk while they're doing.
Yeah, but we'll be watching a commercial, Jim. Look, I'll go back to it.
It's okay.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, because when I went away from it, it was full screen commercial.
Not a problem. No, I'm being asked to do an interview at the top of the hour for probably about 15 minutes with Iran.
No kidding. That's cool.
Here we go. They got an alert. Go back.
Alert.
Sound. Arkansas, they're called for Trump. Turn back up the sound, would you, Giuseppe?
Sure.
Former Vice President Joe Biden in the state of Arkansas. Also, polls have now belatedly closed in North Carolina, a must-win state for the president if he's to secure another term. Democrats hope to turn this reliably red state blue, I should say, this year. although it's too early to determine whether those efforts will succeed.
We're also watching the North Carolina Senate race.
You know,
which
if he
could
takes
help
North
determine the balance of
Carolina
power, whether
and
Republicans keep control
Florida,
in the Senate.
I would say
Republican
he's in
incumbent
really
Tom
good
Tillis
shape
facing a
to.
strong challenge.
Yeah, well, he's gonna
Cunningham too
he's
early.
gonna take part in Pennsylvania and North Carolina, I believe.
Back to that Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, who some believe will run for the Republican presidential nomination in 2024.
Tom Cotton's a good guy.
Of his Senate seat. That's because tonight Cotton will win re-election, easily beating a Libertarian challenger, Ricky Dale Harrington.
Ricky
Let's look
Dale.
at the state of Florida. That we're getting a separation here in Florida that seems to be going Donald Trump's way. Again, 29 electoral votes in for Florida, 88% of the precincts in. And if you look at the map, it keeps on populating, but the separation here could get to 3 points. If you look at some of these counties, for example, Palm Beach County, and obviously the president calls that home, 56-43, and just look back at 2016, what the spread was, 57-42. So it's kind of tracking there. But some of these other counties in the I-4 corridor, you see Donald Trump running up the lead, and I think we might be getting close on Florida.
And they haven't moved into the panhandle, which is all red.
We're back with the panel. Chris?
Yeah.
Well, Hillary.
One thing that's strange about Florida is, northern Florida is kind of part of the South, whereas southern Florida isn't.
Continues, Donald Trump will have a bigger victory he'll have a bigger victory than that tonight over Joe Biden. And I know the Trump camp feels, well, if he does well in Florida, then maybe he'll have a bigger margin in Georgia and North Carolina and that march up the Atlantic coast. It's fascinating. Let me also say, though, about Florida.
Chris Wallace is going to come out as gay later in his life. You watch.
Yeah. No doubt.
Trump winning tonight, he had to win the 29 electoral votes from in Florida. Biden doesn't need that and wasn't really counting on it, but hoped to win it. And certainly he campaigned hard and he sent Barack Obama down there on Monday. So it'll be a disappointment to him, but it isn't a killer the way it would have been had the president lost Florida. I'm looking at our Fox News opinion analysis, and there's some numbers in here that would seem to bode very ill for Donald Trump. When you ask people,
here we go.
Are conditions in this country right direction or wrong direction?
Yeah, but that's because of the coronavirus. They think they can fix it. That's why they're going to fix it. That was a loaded question.
Issue. If it's the economy, overwhelmingly 79-19 for Trump. If you think it's the coronavirus, 74-25 for Biden, and a lot more people think the coronavirus is a bigger issue. So that would seem to indicate that.
Look how jumped that would be if people thought coronavirus were a bigger issue than the economy.
And I'm thinking why. Part of it,
that's just what a mind rape success that is.
Maybe.
Who cares if you can pay your bills?
Biden.
Right. You just want to be safe from coronavirus. That's all that matters.
Yeah, you're afraid of a disease that has a 99.997 survival rate if you're under 65.
He's going to turn it into another
so ridiculous.
Cuba. He's going to turn it into another Maduro, Chavez, Venezuela.
Yeah, the only state that's disappointing is Virginia, man. Virginia should not be blue.
With Donald Trump as the leader
of it. Especially when you got a governor who's a complete nut job.
I think something else we haven't talked about enough tonight, ground game. The Trump organization has had an enormous ground game.
Yeah,
and the
Nico's mom thinks it's going to be a landslide for Trump. I don't know.
Millions of people knocking on doors. And
Trump derangement syndrome is pretty strong.
Of campaigning.
I hope she's right.
I will accept 270 votes. As long as Trump wins, I don't give a damn.
Was doing a lot more.
I've been very positive because of all the reasons why he should win. Given all the forces allied against him, the massive effort they're going to do to steal the election, as long as he wins, I'll be satisfied.
I'd love to get
there you go. That's well said,
these
Professor.
Voter analysis in Florida. Would you say that Joe Biden is a strong leader? 3% say yes. Would you say that Donald Trump is a strong leader? And you've got 86% of those who say yes to that.
3%.
Trump. Same kind of breakdown that we're seeing.
Here's a question: does Joe Biden know what state he's in?
that. Didn't fare well on it.
And it's not even Joe Biden. You know, I was going to say, they say he's making a strong effort. His body double is making a strong effort.
But
Right.
strong leader.
Right.
It does tell you something what people now expect from political leaders, right? That,
Really?
that honest and trustworthy wouldn't necessarily be the big bellwether you would imagine. By the way, folks, just to hark back to 4 years ago, and we talked about this on this night.
Oh, here we go.
We've got a minor shift in the betting odds, which were well up over 65% Biden. Now it's 59.2 to 40. So at least some people who have money on the line have begun to think that Mr. Trump has a better chance than.
How could they have not realized he had a great chance? Jesus.
Move at all. A couple other things, Martha.
Something seems so wrong about taking bets on the presidential election. Maybe it's just me.
Brett's good. Brett's good.
0.5% to 49.5%. That's been true for some years now. In this electorate, according to our voter analysis poll, or whatever we're calling it, it's 53-46 in this electorate, women over men, and Joe Biden's winning that cohort by 18 percentage points. Of course, that's it's a national number, so it doesn't necessarily tell you much about.
Why would women go for Biden and Harris? God,
women are.
We are seeing kind of.
You guys are the majority, Martha, and even more so in this election tonight.
And we are seeing, as expected, the gap in suburban women that was expected. That seems to be showing up in a lot of these states as well. Dana?
Well, actually, I was just looking at New Hampshire because we haven't called that yet, and we said we're waiting on it, as Bill mentioned earlier. Well, one of the things there is you have the split, as Britt has pointed out, women voting at 51% to men at 48, a little bit closer than usual, but going for Biden 61 to 37. And New Hampshire was one of those states that from the beginning, President Trump only lost it by just a tiny amount
3,000
in
votes
2016, or 2,700 votes. So that was one that you would think that they could have picked up. And the way, if things get real tight here and you need, 4 electoral college votes to get you to 270, there is that. I also wanted to point out on Florida, I think, the fact that the president went back over and over again, he never tired of going there. He would hold rallies there, but Chris mentioned the ground game, but also think of how many new registered voters that the Republicans had over the Democrats in Florida. It's a really big deal. I also think that the handling of Governor DeSantis of COVID seems to go well with how they think that the economy went. When President Trump 2 years ago said, America will never be a socialist country. And then he went back over and again to the Cubans, to the Venezuelans. And it's not like we don't have real-time examples of what's happening in Venezuela, because we do. The other thing is you have to remember the boat parades. And so you saw, Brett, sure. I mean, there was enthusiasm. People were trying to figure out, okay, we can't gather in large groups, but how can we show our enthusiasm? And
I talked to a Venezuelan a couple of days ago.
Mike Walsh,
hates commies.
Republican, going for re-election and cruising to that.
I think Venezuela gets a bad rap.
The enthusiasm in Florida.
As does Iran.
Juan, as you look at the other numbers we're seeing, are Democrats worried about inner cities like Atlanta, like Columbus, Cleveland? Are you hearing concern about turnout in some of those big cities in the battlegrounds?
Well, I think that you have to focus here, and if you focus in on Philadelphia, which has been primary, as we saw in the last few days of campaigning, so far they're not concerned. They're feeling pretty good about that. But I just wanted to go back to Florida for a second and talk about that Latino vote, Brett, because, I mean, if you look at that right now, what you're seeing in Florida, according to our numbers, is it's about 17% of the electorate in Florida was Latino. And you see
Latino means nothing. It's a term that doesn't mean anything.
Biden among Latino women, who are 9%, the majority of the Latino vote, 64-33. So Biden wins, but the margin of victory is markedly less than what we saw going back to 2016. In that time, we saw Clinton winning 62% of Latino men, 68% of Latino women.
A lot of the countries in Central and South America hate each other. There's no
Latino
unity, like, oh, hey, we're Hispanic. We like each other. No, it doesn't work like that.
About 37, 40%, now down to about a 23% margin in terms of the Latino vote. Again, the success that President Trump had with the Latino voters in Florida, I think, is a key element in what he's doing. We also have to talk a little bit about, at some point, how he's doing with black men, which has been a big discussion. It had been a big focus going back to the State of the Union through the conventions for the Trump campaign, hoping even recently with some of these rappers coming into the White House, embracing the president, that he could sway black men to come with him. But, you know, again, it's really about black women who have turned out, and they've been strong for Biden in the states that we've seen so far. 92% in Virginia, 94% in
That's
Georgia,
just terrible.
North Carolina.
That's just terrible. That's very disappointing that black women can't see through the facade.
But it's the strength of black women that it seems to me is pushing what Brit Hume is talking about with the differential. You see more non-white women pushing towards Biden.
Let's get Carl Roven here. Carl, your thoughts on what we're seeing develop here tonight in Florida?
Turd blossom.
Smart guy.
I think one of the big issues here is voter registration. I say full disclosure because I was involved in a nationwide voter registration program in 13 states that allow online registration. Think about this. 2016, there were a total of well, the Republicans were 340,000 below the Democrats. Today, they're about 130,000 below the Democrats. That's the smallest margin between Democratic and Republican registrations in like 30 some odd years. And Florida was a much smaller state with a much less of a population for that long ago. And you know, this has to be factored into it, and we may be seeing that tonight. Sumter County, for example, where the villages are, has both grown in population and grown in importance as a result. And it's full of seniors. The Villages is a senior retirement community with about 10 different or 12 different sort of installations or components of it. And today, Trump has been winning that county with about 90% of the vote in by better than 2-to-1, significantly of where he was 4 years ago. I suspect that's in part a sign of what the movement into Florida has done and what the changing nature of the Florida electorate is like.
Hey, Carl, I want to ask one thing. Just interrupt you real quick. We talked about this earlier tonight, and I just want to bring it up now. In all of these states, you have absentee ballots requested, and then absentee ballots, according to the secretaries of state, that come back, that have been returned. In Florida, as of this afternoon, you had the requested at more than 6,004,000. As of this afternoon, 4,649,000 of those ballots had been returned. We're trying to get an update for tonight. Is that an issue if the separation in some of these states fits below that number?
Yeah, well, yes, there are some people who just decide not to vote. The bigger number come from people like myself. I was planning to do a mail-in ballot, got my ballot at the house, and then decided, my wife went and voted at the early vote location in Texas, and she said, look, like a breeze, walk in, walk out. Well, I went there, I took my ballot, ran it through the shredder, went to the early voting location. If I'd shown up with it, it would have taken me maybe 10 minutes to do the whole thing. Surrender my blue ballot, sign one form, and then go. Instead, by not having it with me, I had to spend 20 minutes, and I'm a provisional ballot. But that's the way a lot of people handle it. They just get rid of the ballot or turn the ballot in and end up voting in person.
I don't know if an angel is landing or what's happening there, but somebody's
It's a wonderful life.
Yeah, it's a wonderful life. 4.737 casts so far, but some of these states, we should point out, extended the deadline for those ballots to come in.
This guy is one of the smartest political operators in the country, Carl Rove.
Turd blossom.
Have to have a
Because he can
or
turn
signature on the
into
Okay,
something good.
We're getting our first look at Arizona and Michigan, Wisconsin, a host of other states. But first, a quick look at where the race stands now. President Trump has a total of 73 electoral votes in his column. Joe Biden has 91 so far tonight.
Well, so far there's no
Campaign's
surprises.
Peter Doocy is at the Biden
Virginia's a
headquarters in
disappointment,
Wilmington, Delaware.
but no
But we
surprises.
have John Roberts, who is at the White House. That's where President
Man,
Trump
if
is
Trump
tonight,
could get Michigan and
watching as these
Wisconsin,
results
then
come in.
that would show me he's
Ron,
going to
what's the
win.
mood with the
He's
campaign?
going to get Michigan and Wisconsin.
Michael Brett, good evening to you. Of course, the campaigns will always tell you that they're optimistic, but they are actually very optimistic here at the Trump campaign, and folks here at the White House as well, believing that the president is poised to win this. You heard Carl Rove a moment ago talking about the Villages and how it's going for President Trump. I was at a campaign event, his last one at the Villages. It was a week ago last Friday. There were thousands of people there. The enthusiasm really was off the charts. But as importantly, President Trump really does seem to be performing much better with Hispanic voters in Florida this year than he did back in 2016. And when you talk about enthusiasm as well, he had an event in Opelika, Florida, a couple of days ago. 12,000 people were there. So I was talking to somebody from the Trump campaign a short time ago. They believe that Florida is a lock for them. They're just waiting for the official call. More difficult is what's going on in Pennsylvania. They believe that they're going to do well there. I was in Scranton, the Scranton area yesterday. A lot of enthusiasm there. They might win it tonight, but then there's this concern about 3 days of counting ballots thereafter. Those ballots will be counted but segregated. Anything that comes in after 8 o'clock tonight, that could be potentially the focus of a legal challenge. But that all depends on what happens tonight. If Joe Biden were to run away with it, clearly there wouldn't be a challenge. Or if President Trump were to run away with it, there likely wouldn't be a legal challenge. So we'll still have to wait to see. Other than that, the campaign feeling good about Arizona, Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, Iowa, and Ohio. There's some thought that the president could flip Nevada. The idea being that casino workers and other service workers are concerned about more coronavirus lockdowns under a Biden presidency, and the fact that that might actually cause some of the casinos and hotels to go under.
Yes.
Come out President Trump. And then there's Minnesota.
Did you know that the governor of Nevada outlawed all conventions in Nevada?
Ronald Reagan.
Really?
In
1984. He's talking about Minnesota.
But the Trump campaign cautiously optimistic that they might be able to do it tonight. We'll wait and see. Basically, the president says we're looking good all over the country. Time will tell. And I know that
he's actually very good. This John Roberts, one of the best reporters.
Real quick, Ohio, we've got the board pulled up here, and that vote, as we said, early vote going for Joe Biden in Ohio. There was confidence, though, in the Trump campaign about the situation on the ground in Ohio, right?
Yeah, and of course, you know, early voting tends to favor Democrats, but they believe as the numbers start to come in that things will turn around. They really do believe that Ohio is going to go into the win column for them. But this idea of if Florida is called, I mean, clearly it's not going to affect the vote because the vote's already been taken, but it certainly will be a big psychological boost for the Trump campaign.
Yeah.
All right, John, thank you.
It's worth pointing out that Florida started counting weeks ago. So they may be one of the states that in the battleground category that has perhaps the most efficient process that we're going to see tonight. So we do expect that we're going to be able to make, some call on Florida tonight.
They were afraid of 2,000.
Yeah,
I remember Tallahassee.
They want to make sure they've got it, all those I's dotted and T's crossed.
White
our thanks to John. We'll go back to him later tonight. Peter Ducey is also with us. He's live where he is.
What did I miss?
Time over the past several months in Wilmington,
How
Delaware.
white their teeth
covering the
are.
Biden campaign. Peter, what are you hearing from their side tonight?
Well, right now, Martha, we're not hearing anything at the Biden HQ. It is very quiet, as you can see, because the 300 cars that have been queued up and swept nearby for a drive-in event tonight have not been let in. So it is kind of a surreal scene where we do expect
a
to
drive-in
see Joe Biden.
event.
Right now, it's ridiculous. It's the best they can do. They can even hire drivers.
As of right now,
I'll be right back.
They ran through their numbers with us this morning.
Joe's taking a nap right now. They don't want to disturb him.
They thought they had a path to victory, even if they did
Time for
not
his Geritol and a glass of warm milk.
Florida, Ohio, or Texas. So as of right now, the way that they see things, that still has not changed. They think that a lot of the, they're also telling us that
Here,
a
let's
lot
turn
of
this guy
what they
down.
think
It's
they're hearing from the
shocking,
Trump campaign
Scorpio,
is
that
platitudes, and
so many
if the
people
Trump campaign
drink
really
the
thinks that they
globalist,
have a pathway to
Bolshevik,
270 or at least
Democratic
as many pathways to
Kool-Aid
270,
and are
that they
so
should
weak-minded
show their work.
that
As
they
for Joe
believe
Biden,
the
we understand that
globalist
he is
lies
at
of the
home right now.
scam-demic.
He is somebody who
Yeah.
is big on Twitter. He has said
Yeah.
over the
And meanwhile, it's destroying their lives,
story about
and they're going along with it willingly. It's incredible.
Yeah, exactly. It's destroying their lives, and they're going along with it
during the
willingly.
pandemic in the campaign, he has spent
I can't believe that people in Ohio are voting for Joe Biden. Exactly what do they think they're going to get from him, other than unemployment?
hour by hour. And also
Yeah.
something that was interesting, just in terms
Right.
of what he might be doing as all this
Maybe
as
to
his whole
avoid
world, maybe
copyright
getting ready to change.
issues,
The other day we were in
we
Warm
should
Springs, Georgia, after an event.
pop out of
just
this for a
staring at the
while,
motorcade, which
because they don't mind if you have fair use, you know. But
Yeah,
they
you can't
seem
do it
to
for too
mind-
long at a time. Yeah.
Yeah, too long at a time. So this is C-SPAN. They're conservative. So still 85, 61.
Oh, wow.
So looking at the map, Scorpio.
And they don't have anything interesting
Jim's
to
back.
say.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Stick with Fox.
Yeah, I just wanted to not have it continuous because that's how you got popped for copyright the other day when you ran that whole Tucker thing on your Jim the Conspiracy Guy. They don't mind fair use when you but running the whole thing that then they feel you're stealing from them.
Still only a segment, Giuseppe. It wasn't the whole show.
To show him something.
Yeah, I don't
And
know,
so
but
we know that
for
he is
some reason
watching
you got
the
popped
returns
on
with
that one. It was pretty
family.
long. I don't
He
know.
usually
Maybe there's a
doesn't have lot of
time
people
limit they
around,
monitor.
but
Like
it is a
I don't know.
It's over 5 minutes.
Yeah,
the
maybe 5
Democratic
minutes or
nominee
longer.
is fully briefed on whatever is going on. Martha?
Peter, thank you very much.
More than a dozen states, including some of the most consequential of this 2020 election, set to close their polls in just a few minutes. We'll get our first look at those results.
Well, you know, the interesting thing so far is nothing has changed. There's no radical departure from the Democratic states are Democratic, the Republican states are Republican. There's been no change either way, which is surprising under these extraordinary times.
Well, I think most interesting reports are twofold. Number one, the Latino vote, although Scorpio says it's meaningless, as a political designation, the Latino vote is up. That's significant. And in that Atlanta precinct, the black turnout is down. And I tell you, it's because the blacks are being told they should not vote for Trump. But they're not going to vote for Biden. So they're not even turning out.
Yeah, and what I meant by that too, with that comment, is that it depends what country these people are from. There's no racial unity among so-called Hispanics. It all depends on what country they're from. Each country has a different culture and a different way they do stuff, man, and it just depends, you know?
Yes. Well, as I said, it looks to me that Trump is headed for re-election, but not by the margin I would have preferred. In fact, I'm embarrassed there are any states voting for Biden. It means they haven't been paying the least bit of attention. They don't understand what he stands for. They know nothing about the corruption in which he's engaged. They don't even realize it's not even Joe Biden out there on the stump.
Well, exactly. It's just stereotypical people who believe what the TV tells them. It's really tragic.
Yeah, I think in a nutshell, that's it. Or as Rush Limbaugh puts it, it's groupthink, you know.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah.
The chatters are saying that Speedy Striper is saying that Texas is blue right now.
Well, look, it depends which precincts they count first, Scorpio. It doesn't mean anything. Texas is not going for Biden, for God's sake. I mean, especially after he declared he was going to shut down oil. I mean, Texas would never have gone Democrat anyway. But, you know, that's just, Speedy's just misreading. You get these kinds of fluctuations all the time, just depending on which precincts are reporting.
Right. Like if they're, you know, counting San Antonio and certain sections of Houston or what have you, it would seem Democratic. But
in Austin.
Well, yeah. Oh, of course, Austin. But if you get out into rural Texas, you know,
right.
You'll
Whole
never.
different story.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I really can't believe how much games they're playing, like with indicting Kyle Rittenhouse. I mean, how ridiculous can you get?
$2 million.
These Democrats have no principles whatsoever. They're completely unscrupulous.
Right. They're globalist. They're like a cancer, a globalist parasitical cancer. Yeah.
Well, I don't even see how they could have charged him with first-degree murder. That would mean that he
went premeditated. Right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, that he went there with the intent of killing somebody.
He's
Scorpio, you're 100% correct. The worst charge would be manslaughter.
Yeah.
He was acting in self-defense. It was spontaneous, unrehearsed, unintended. Here we go.
Remember what we talked about at the beginning of our broadcast, and the probability meter takes into account the voter analysis.
Oh, this is probability for Trump, 93% carrying Florida.
Desk in Florida can say that Florida is 93% a probability, not a certainty, that it's going to go to Donald Trump. They haven't made the call as of yet. Flip that over to North Carolina, where we are still getting the vote coming in, 89% probability for Biden in North Carolina, and that is really worth digging into about what is happening in the state of North Carolina.
73% in. Let's go to Bill Hemmer and
That's
get
hard to
at
believe.
some of these counties and some of the breakdown.
Well, no, man.
in
If
North
you look at
Carolina
what
tonight,
Frederick
Bill.
C. Blackburn talks about, the globalist is a cancer in North Carolina.
Yeah, but still, it's not the state I remember, but that was a long time ago.
Caution our viewers, the early votes use blue. And then you get the in-person vote. Here's a very good example of that. North Carolina, you're about 75%, 73 at the moment, 73% of the vote counted. Joe Biden with a slight lead here.
Well, the map we were looking at this morning has North Carolina.
Part of North Carolina. Watch this here from 4 years ago. They were
Blue.
all bad. So I would expect a little more votes to come in here and keep that vote.
No, I'm wrong. Actually, it had Virginia blue, but not North Carolina.
As you can poke through this map in North Carolina, you can find good news for Joe Biden. You can find good news for Donald Trump as well. So we'll continue.
How many electoral votes has North Carolina?
15.
Just a little more than half of the vote in right now, and Joe Biden a 10-point lead. Do we really think Ohio is a 10-point lead for Joe Biden? Probably not. Campaigns virtually ignored Ohio. When was the last time that happened in a national campaign? In fact, Joe Biden went to Cuyahoga County, which is Cleveland, just the other day. It was like a drive-by, pretty much. He came by there in the early afternoon and then went back.
And nobody's turning out for Joe Biden.
So it's a lot of vote to tally. And I would make the case, guys, that you can dribble around this map here in Ohio, too, and find good news for Donald Trump in the offing and find good news for Joe Biden as well. Here's one. I mentioned this earlier. This is Delaware County. These are the suburbs of a growing Columbus, Ohio, just to the north. This is where our friend John Kasich lives, by the way. You see these numbers for Joe Biden? This is what I would, Martha, you mentioned the suburban vote, how we're tracking that right now. This is where you find it here. Joe Biden by 10 points over Donald Trump. You got a lot of votes in for that county right now. You see how it was flipped 4 years ago. If you're the Trump team, you don't want to see this kind of result right now in 2020. But a few more counties to follow in here. These are largely rural, right along the Ohio River.
Sounds to me like they're counting a lot of ballots that were made out in advance.
Very soon.
Makes
let me
sense.
just pop out here, guys. Sorry, there it is. I would expect this number to tighten over the next hour or two as the in-person votes are cast. And
we had one of our chatters put up
again, sticking there.
A note, but it disappeared. I think he was saying 76% North Carolina. There we go. Thank you. Goes red. Good.
Let's go. Do we mind popping into Georgia? And,
sure can.
We have that delay in Fulton County, and that is
reality check.
Atlanta. That is really a place that Biden has to win big. Right now, Donald Trump's up in the overall vote. What are you looking at?
Here's Atlanta right here, right? Fulton County. So it stretches well into the north here. And we got a lot of votes to tabulate here between Biden and Trump and Fulton County. I pop out here to Cobb County. Joe Biden with a lead about 2-1 right now. Still some votes out there in Cobb County. Pop over here to DeKalb. DeKalb County is not going red. I can tell you that. It is a deep blue county just east of the city of Atlanta. And so very few votes right in from DeKalb County. Pop up to Gwinnett. Numbers are starting to get higher here, 2-1 for Joe Biden. But
and then 2016?
2016, specifically in Gwinnett, it was 53-47. That was the margin from 4 years ago. Fulton County, I mean, that was a clear winner for Hillary Clinton. Pop over here to DeKalb. I just mentioned this. She got 80% of the vote in 2016. So you got a long way to go here. But all these counties around Atlanta, Georgia, that's where the Democrats are going to pick up a lot of votes, Joe Biden tonight. And we'll see how the rural area fills out throughout the evening.
Good stuff. We're going to dig down with you in all these counties in the big states, and we are getting ready for some big calls 39 seconds away from the next poll closings. And this includes a number of states and a number of possible calls that also affect the balance of power potentially in the U.S. Senate. Remember, we are tracking not only the presidential race, but who controls the U.S. Senate, which is a major question at this hour.
Yep. We know Mitch McConnell has secured his seat in Kentucky, but we're waiting for a lot of big states to come in. Georgia, as we have mentioned, is probably not going to be known this evening, but places like North Carolina, where Tom Tillis has been in a tight race against Cal Cunningham, is one we're going to be watching for, hopefully over the course of tonight or the next couple of days as we get ready to make the next set of race calls. And it is now 9 p.m. on the East Coast, and the polls have just closed in 14 states across the country. Several of these are considered crucial battlegrounds for whoever will win the White House. Let's start tonight with Arizona, a state that could make or break President Trump's bid for a second term, although the president spent the last 8 months trailing Joe Biden in Arizona's pre-election polls. He did manage to close that gap in the campaign's final days. Still, as of this moment, our decision desk has no decision to announce on the Grand Canyon state.
Nor can we make a call in Texas. Democrats have been trying to turn Texas blue for several presidential cycles. A win by Joe Biden tonight would obviously be devastating to Trump's campaign. The Trump campaign thinks they can pull that out in Texas, but it might be close.
And then there's the upper Midwest, which played such an important role in President Trump's upset victory over Hillary Clinton back in 2016. 3 states from that region are up for grabs at this hour, which Democrats are ahead in all 3 at this moment, according to the Fox News voter analysis, although it's too early to project the winners.
I used to live in Texas. I can't imagine people in Texas voting for Joe Biden.
He remembered that they
Again, a long time ago.
4 years ago.
Michigan, where President Trump barely squeaked a victory than candidate Trump in 2016, and Minnesota, where Trump narrowly lost in 2016, and they invested some time in Minnesota this time around. We can, however, project that President Trump will beat Joe Biden in Kansas based on our voter analysis tonight.
And the Republican president will also defeat his Democratic challenger in the state of Louisiana. In Nebraska, one of 2 states that does not use a winner-take-all method for allocating electoral votes, Trump will win 4 of the state's 5 electoral votes there. Too early to project a presidential winner in Nebraska's 2nd congressional district.
Maine being the other. Which
electoral vote.
Remember, Maine's the other one. We still haven't called that other congressional
there you go.
either. And similarly, conservative Wyoming, President Trump will rack up another easy victory there. And the story is the same in North Dakota, where the president comes out on top. And unsurprisingly, Trump also wins South Dakota.
In New York, the Fox News decision desk can project that Joe Biden will cruise to an easy victory over Trump in a place that he used to call his hometown. He calls Florida home now.
We like being locked down.
Biden will also win the state of Colorado.
Surprising Colorado.
I think so too, man.
A winner in New Mexico.
What happened in Colorado?
Strong support.
They declared it for Biden.
Polling.
All right, let's turn now to the Senate races.
Not that long ago, Colorado was a redneck state, man.
Redneck state.
And I mean that in a good way.
Democratic Governor Hickenlooper, the former governor there, will oust Republican Senator Cory Gardner in the first Senate flip of the night. Remember, Democrats need 4 net, or 3 and the White House to take over control. This is 1 net in the Democrats' column. Another closely watched Senate race is the special election in Arizona, where Republican Senator Martha McSally faces a strong challenge from Democrat Mark Kelly, a former astronaut. Kelly currently has a lead over McSally, but again, it's too early to call that race.
Similarly, Michigan Senator Gary Peters, a Democrat, is ahead of Republican John James, although it is too early to project a winner in that race.
James looked great.
Projects that Republican
That guy in Arizona, is he the husband of that woman that supposedly got shot in the head?
Yep.
Made it through that one.
Yeah, that's a long
The most
list.
miraculous recovery I've ever seen.
Yeah, obviously, some of those races President Trump has spent a lot of time on. In Michigan, pulling for John James, a veteran who has run before in the state of Michigan and running again now. Gary Peters giving him a run for his money. That one is
Big Joe.
Really,
But too early to call, I should say.
Yeah, Michigan, where it goes on the presidential, as you look at the race to 270, it's now 129 to 94. How Michigan and the presidential race fares there could affect that Senate race very closely. Let's just talk for a second. Cory Gardner losing to John Hickenlooper. Chris, Gardner was one of the most vulnerable.
Well, Trump's way ahead in Michigan.
Leaning blue.
But it's just early counting, though.
Scorpio's just switch precincts and count.
Yeah, I get that, but still.
Oh,
There
yeah.
were two that looked
We like it when he's ahead, yeah.
One was Alabama, Doug Jones against Tommy Tuberville. And interestingly enough, we haven't called that. Everybody thought that was likely to go to the GOP. We haven't called it yet. Not to say it won't happen. And then the other one was leaning Democrat, was the incumbent Republican Cory Gardner in Colorado against the former governor, two-time mayor of Denver, two-time governor of Colorado, failed presidential candidate in this cycle, John Hickenlooper. So assuming that Doug Jones does lose, we're exactly where we were at the beginning of the night, which is a 53-47 majority for the Republicans. They need to pick up 3 more seats, flip 3 more Republican seats, and win the White House, so that you'd have Kamala Harris as the tiebreaker, or 4 net to take over the Senate. A couple of things. I've been in touch with the Biden campaign. They are, although we haven't called it, they're waving the white flag of defeat in Florida. They think that Florida is gone, accentuating the positive, making the best case of it. They say that they very much underperformed among Cuban Americans. They think that the president's socialism, Democrats, Biden allegation stuck. But
Cubans hate communists, man.
Americans
better believe it.
So they don't think that'll be an issue in other Hispanic communities. They say they're overperforming in Ohio in the suburbs. You heard Bill Hemmer talk about around Columbus. They say in Cincinnati they're overperforming as well.
If you mention his name, as in the debate, we have to bring him in. Bill Hemmer. Bill Hemmer's at the board. Pull up Ohio. You can ask him questions.
Well, no, I just actually, can I tell you one thing, Bill?
Sure can. Yeah.
My son, Peter, has just sent me an email, and he says, does Hemmer really know all of those counties, or is he reading off a teleprompter? And I said,
right here.
do not tug on Bill Hemmer's cape.
No, exactly.
You tell him I said hello too, Chris. Okay?
Yeah, but are you reading off a teleprompter, or do you really?
No, I'm just looking at this monitor right here, which shows me you actually. And you, listen, I think
don't start pointing at various points of my
This
face.
is a perfect time to mention the race of 1876, where you and Britt covered that. Right? And so now's a perfect time to let you know.
Play nice here.
That Brett and I covered the election of 2000 in Tallahassee, and that's where Brett and I became friends for the first time.
That is true.
But
You're at another network.
We've got that on you guys, okay?
But all right, so let me ask you about
Yes,
the Biden campaign claims that they're overperforming in the suburbs of an area that matters a lot to you, Cincinnati. Is that true?
It is true at the moment, based on what I can see a little bit.
Reality check is saying 82% chance for Trump taking North Carolina now.
Columbus.
That'd
and
be
up here in
huge.
Delaware County, where I talked about a little bit before. It's a growing part of the state. Also a lot of farms too up in Delaware County too. But I can buy that part of the state a little more than I can.
North Carolina could turn out to be the key
What I
state.
will tell you, Chris, however,
Yeah, right.
we are pop out here. We're at 59% of the vote in Ohio. And this is Montgomery County. That is Dayton, Ohio. That is one of a few counties that the president flipped from 2016 to 2020. So what's happening in Dayton, Ohio? Joe Biden's got a clear lead, 60 to 38% right now, but the raw numbers still are a bit on the low side. We're going to get that up probably another double, I would say, in Montgomery County. I would also say, since you're talking about the suburbs of Cincinnati, this is Butler County. It's north of Cincinnati, the home of Miami University, Oxford, Ohio, class of 1987. So this is Donald Trump right now with 64% of the vote from 4 years ago. See the raw numbers right there, about 160,000. This is where we are now. We're about 110,000, so at least 50,000 votes are still outstanding. Trump's at 53.7. Just go back again, it was at 64.8. He could get there, but again, a lot of those votes right now outstanding would have to go to him. So I can buy that argument a little bit, Chris, I think, but so much of, come on, so much of this, 41% of the vote, is yet to be.
All right, Juan, Dana, Britt, you're in the game here with Bill. So he's in. Go ahead. You can ask.
I want to ask Bill a question, but I do want to point something out about Colorado and Cory Gardner, who I was always kind of wondering. I heard he was in trouble, and we kind of knew that Colorado's trended blue for some time now. But listen to this number: in the state of Colorado, men versus women in the vote. Biden won the men vote 49-47, but listen to this number with women, 61-36. Biden over Trump. Now, it's pretty hard for an incumbent Republican running with a guy at the top of the ticket who gets crushed that badly by the majority gender in our country to win re-election, and he didn't.
So who else has a question for Bill Hemmer at the board? It's Ask
My
Bill.
son Peter does, but he's not here.
Peter's not here.
Peter's not here.
He doesn't get to play. Juan, what about it?
Peter can text me too, by the way.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, we'll get you on the hotline. The thing is about the Cory Gardner too is that he was the most bipartisan member there. And as you look across these states, if a Republican is going to lose, and you're looking at, you think there's going to be a wholesale
What
change.
a change in Colorado.
So.
That's crazy.
John Hickenlooper was a governor of Colorado, and I know Colorado is more of a reliable state now for Democrats, but it's still.
We know Colorado's full of illegal aliens, man. Lots of illegal aliens there.
One of the things that I was wondering
App reality check. They called Virginia like an hour ago. It's crazy.
Vote a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we.
It's because the precincts reality check. It's because of precincts. They have an analysis of what has to be won in order for each of the candidates to prevail. But it's still like a premature call.
Guys. You have about 22% of the votes still to be tallied here. Joe Biden's sitting in a pretty good spot at the moment. You mentioned Mecklenburg. This is Charlotte right here on the map. He's got a 2-to-1 lead right now. Fast math tells me about 500,000, about 500,000 votes there. So that's about.
Now you're seeing the difference that the suppression of the Biden laptop information is made here. That's actually.
Oh, that's an excellent point, especially in the South.
And a little better than
Right.
Hillary Clinton.
Chopped in half. Imagine
in a race,
each women voting for somebody who's in this degree of corruption and whose son is dealing with them and who lies to the
Yep.
American people.
That is an excellent point,
in
Professor.
2020. Just pop in here one more moment. This is Wake County, something we'll keep an eye on. Heavily Democratic. He had a lot of votes out there. Over here in Raleigh as well, you're going to get a lot of votes there. He's up at 80%, but still some votes outstanding, as we can see from 2016. Well, Hillary Clinton met the number at 81,000 as well. So about 200,000 in Raleigh total votes from 4 years ago. Still have about 35,000 votes outstanding in 2020. Joe Biden's right at the mark where she was 4 years ago. Pop down here. I mentioned this when we came on the air a couple hours ago. This is Robeson County, one of 6 counties that President Trump flipped from Barack Obama from 2016. So this county here is largely rural and it's white, and the president's got 58% of the vote. Pretty good number there in that county. From 2016, he was at 52.5. So what's going on out there? Is the rural vote starting to come in? Is it starting to materialize? Remember, we were told and we were warned to tell our viewers, and we'll remind them yet again, that early on in the night, the numbers were going to skew blue, and then the in-person votes would come in places like North Carolina, in places like Georgia and Florida. And that seems to be a bit of the pattern we're seeing right now. But at the moment, well,
Democrats are too afraid to vote in person.
To call, but you can see how it's starting to go more and more narrow in the Tar Heel state.
I'd love to bring in Karl Rove and get a look at Texas and the vote that is coming in there so far, Bill. About 50% Joe Biden, 48%, 48.5% Donald Trump. It's close, but there's, by my read, it's about 41% of the vote, and it could be a little bit higher than that. Let us know what you're seeing there, and let's see what Karl thinks
Sure.
about that.
Rove's out of my league, by the way. Go ahead, Karl. What do you got?
Karl,
Well,
what
I
do
don't
you
know
got?
what that means, but I'm looking at the numbers. I've been playing with them. Right now, this lead is statewide is relatively close, about 105,000 votes. And you're right, about 40-some-odd% of the vote is still out. Bexar County, San Antonio is 88% in. Dallas is 81% in. Harris County is 82% in. Travis County, my home county, is 90% in. All of those are strong for Joe Biden. Tarrant County is 90% in. That's Fort Worth. And Trump leads there by 1,000 votes. So if you're a Democrat and you got 40-some-odd% of the vote out and the big cities are largely in, that 105 is going to disappear when Taylor County comes in, Abilene, when the East Texas, Piney Woods, Smith, Long Beach, others start coming in. If I'm looking at this, I'm happy if I'm in the Trump headquarters. I'm saying once again, it hasn't happened if I'm sitting in the Democratic
Carr,
headquarters.
what do you think the margin is in Texas right now as you look at that?
105,000.
Right, but percentage-wise, what would that compute to over time over the next few hours?
Oh, it's over the next couple hours.
Yeah.
I think it's going to end up being a 3%, maybe 4% win for Trump.
Do you believe that's tighter than you expected?
Well, no, because we got a problem in the suburbs, and the problem that you're talking about in Ohio and some of what we've seen in other states in North Carolina, Virginia, it's present in Texas. And look, one of the certainties of presidential politics is there are always changes. There is no continual certainty. No. West Virginia is now reliably Republican, used to be reliably Democrat. Other states, Kentucky and Arkansas, they used to be reliably Democrat. They're now reliably Republican. Things go both ways, and Texas has changed.
Do you think that calculation puts John Cornyn in trouble?
No, not at all. Cornyn has been consistently running ahead of the president in Texas. In fact, tonight, I bet the big story inside Texas will be that the Republicans will keep control of the state house, even after tens of millions of dollars have been pumped into the state. There's a guy I've never heard of in Silicon Valley who spent $11 million in state house races, which means if you got 25 races that everybody was sort of looking at, $500 to $1 million in each
It
of
was
those.
a good comment by Speedy Striper.
And, Barack Obama and Eric Holder, who had an effort involved in this, or the Silicon Valley guy and a bunch of others.
So true.
Money that they poured into an attempt to grab control of the Texas House.
Agreed, Speedy.
Control redistricting for the U.S. House of Representatives that has to be done next year in our legislature is extraordinary. And you can understand why. I mean, we're a growing dynamic state that next year will gain 2 or 3 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. And so the Democrats went all out, and it looks like we're going to keep control of the House.
See, Brett,
today.
I told you knew it. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Never in
You
doubt.
said we're going to keep control of the House. You meant in Texas, or did you mean the United States Congress?
I want to go back to North Carolina really quickly, because that seems like a race where Joe Biden, for all of the time that he put in there, and they had Kamala Harris down there, Joe Biden visited there.
11 people.
It seems as time
Michael Ivey
he's
to heckle her. That was a funny story.
That was funny.
Yeah, I think this is getting tighter and tighter the more we talk, guys, frankly. I mean, look where it's drawn in the time that we just came on a few moments ago, and you still have 20% of the vote outstanding. Remember, blue skews early, right? Then red comes in later. I think this could be razor tight right now as we examine the remaining 20% of the ballots that are still out. That's North Carolina. Just pop down here to Georgia. Reminder to our viewers, this is real-time data now. So you're seeing it when we see it here. You got a large portion of the vote that's out here in Georgia. The president's sitting in the cat seat right now for a moment. We'll see how much this changes. We talked about Atlanta a lot. Keep an eye on that. Fulton County, checked this a moment ago. Really, the numbers haven't moved. Martha, what did you say? There was a water main break there?
Yeah,
that paused everything tonight. If that's the obstruction here, we've got a lot of votes still to be counted down there in Georgia. I don't believe we have called Florida yet.
Nope.
But right now, you're looking at north of 3 percentage points in Florida. And I'll tell you, Brett and Martha, the inside numbers guys in the Republican Party in Florida, even at midday today, said Donald Trump, based on the current track of in-person voting today, that he would win the state by upwards of 4 points. That's still possible.
Trump had to win
9%
Florida.
vote out of the Sunshine.
He's winning. The Democrats have already conceded.
Thanks,
All right,
Bill.
Bill,
We'll
stand
be back
by.
to you shortly. The Fox News Decision Desk can now project that Democrats will retain control of the House of Representatives and expand their majority by at least 5 seats.
Oh, that's too
a
bad.
major boost
Very disappointing.
for Nancy Pelosi, who has pledged to roll back much of President Trump's first-term agenda if he loses re-election. So some thoughts on that from our panel. Dana,
You know,
there have
so
been
many
projections
Americans are
that,
just
Democrats could pick up
lemmings.
as
They
many as
just
15
can't
seats,
think.
in the most recent Cook political analysis.
Well, they're careless. They don't pay attention.
The suburbs, right? So Carl just mentioned it. We brought it up a few times. If you think back to 2018, when we were here doing midterm election analysis, there were 18 seats that the Democrats were able to flip from red to blue. That was a lot. That was enough to get Nancy Pelosi back into the speaker's role. Now remember, those 18 were against impeachment of the president. They wanted her to be much more conciliatory towards the president when it came to a second stimulus bill that never came. And yet they all held on. They were able to raise much more money than the Democrats. They have this as than the Republicans. Carl was mentioning Act Blue. They were just flooded with money. So they were able to hold on to those seats. And not only that, but then they gained another 5, as if this analysis is accurate, maybe even more. And I think that when you look at the suburban districts, that will be interesting. And one other point on that is this is 2020, so it's the beginning of a new decade. That means that we have a census and you will have redistricting opportunities. State legislatures all across this country as well could be changing again. And will Democrats decide to kind of try to solidify those gains? It's very hard to flip those back.
On your thoughts about this, about the House, Speaker Pelosi will retain control. She's obviously been doing this negotiation that was going nowhere with Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, and the coronavirus stimulus never came to be.
Jim, when are you doing your interview with?
Depends on
I thought they would have called already, but not yet.
Okay.
I gave them a note anytime now.
The key point that strikes me is that, picking up on something Dana was just saying, you see that these suburban districts really respond well to moderate Democrats. And yet, in Trump world, oftentimes when they talk about the House, they talk about the squad, AOC, and that becomes kind of the leading figure, the face of Democrats in the House. But in reality,
There you
going
go.
back to 2018,
Amen,
the people
Speedy
who
Striper.
boosted
That's
those
for damn
the
sure.
Democratic prospects in the House were these moderate and oftentimes female Democratic candidates recruited by Pelosi and a lot of the fundraisers. And I think that that's what you're seeing now grow. I don't think that the way that we talk about the House is in accord with the reality of the House in terms of the way Pelosi has managed it and in terms of the people who get elected to the House right now on the Democratic side.
Some Republicans are envious of the way she cracks the whip and keeps everybody in line in the House of Representatives as far as votes for Democrats, and she'll continue to do that. Maybe the most consequential race is still too early to call, including Florida, 29 electoral votes. As you take a look at our probability meter, 93%. We have not called it, but 93% for President Trump. Votes that could make or break for President Trump. Electoral votes on the way to 270. We'll be right back.
Well, it looks like so far there's not going to be any big delays like they were claiming.
Yeah, I wonder how that's going to factor in. That's a really interesting question, Scorpio. So, good.
Yeah, that's a good sign, because if there's big delays, then I'm going to get real worried about the outcome. But so far, things are chugging right along.
If Trump can,
Pennsylvania is the key where they're trying most desperately to steal it.
Right, that's a very good point. If looking at the updated C-SPAN site, if Wisconsin and Michigan go Trump, and Florida and even Georgia, that bodes well for him.
I think all those will go Trump, I think.
And then Texas will go Trump, like Turd Blossom pointed out. So I don't know. I mean, I guess I didn't look close enough at the analysis. I wonder if there is a interactive 270 website where we could click on various scenarios and see how Trump beats the globalist parasites. I don't know. I guess I could look for that.
Well, I'm very distressed, but it's not uncommon. Here we go. Yes. If the Hunter Biden laptop scandal would have been the Donald Trump Jr. laptop scandal, the media would have given Biden a landslide victory. Disgusting. He's got it exactly right. Exactly right, Alex.
Yeah, definitely.
We don't have a news media anymore. We have Tokyo Rose propagandists who read the globalist agenda, and the globalists want a return of puppets like Biden. Has there ever been a bigger Democratic puppet than Joe Biden? I mean, my God.
An empty vessel.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so true. That's a great point Alex Scott made. Yeah, imagine the outrage, the uproar. It would have been 24/7 news coverage, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, even what?
How is Florida the tell saying he'll take Pennsylvania? I don't see that.
How is that helpful, Timbo? Please
Oh, hey,
elaborate.
helpful Timbo.
Helpful Timbo, please elaborate that bold statement.
That's Blackbird 9's compatriot.
Oh, Golden Pipe Wrench. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Golden
Yeah.
Pipe Wrench. Tell us how that's the tell, man.
Yeah.
He's a smart guy.
Trump is taking Florida. The Biden people have already waved the white flag and admitted they're losing Florida. So how does their losing Florida mean they're going to take Pennsylvania?
I just turned on Revolution Radio and Chicago Brews ranting.
About what?
About some type of Brzezinski protege or what have you, and all this and that. And
Yeah, Brew really goes at it, doesn't he? Full throttle.
He's a strong brew, extra caffeine on that one.
I think what helpful Timbo is saying is that since Trump took Florida, he's going to take Pennsylvania too.
Oh, well, I hope that's what he meant.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
What do we got here? Do you want to go back?
Martha, back to you.
Steve, thank you very much.
Democrats retaining majority of the House, even picking up a few seats tonight, as we just told you. We're also watching the Senate very closely, specifically North Carolina, a race that could be a decider whether Democrats take control of that chamber. Mark Meredith is on the ground at Republican Senator Tom Tillis' headquarters in Morgan.
That's going to stay Republican.
Right. Here at Tillis headquarters, they've been watching the numbers very closely. And within the last hour or so, they have seen this race tighten to less than 2 percentage points that they are trailing the former state senator, was Iraq War veteran Cal Cunningham. This is a race that, of course,
see that guy trying to breathe through that mask.
Everyone that's going to be looking at the balance of power.
Pathetic.
Why would you keep it on when you're doing a report?
It was a state that saw record early voting turnout. We saw people that voted the second they could when absentee ballots first went out, as well as October 15th, the day that early voting began in this state. We were at a polling location today, not too far from where we are now, and it was amazing to see that it was so calm because so many of millions of North Carolinians had already taken the chance to vote. I just got done speaking with one of Tillis's supporters as well as advisors, and they, again, were looking at those numbers very closely, remaining somewhat optimistic, but also not certainly popping any champagne corks here at any point. This race is also just so fascinating because—
How could you appear on national television with a mask on? My God.
Scorpio, it happens a lot on MSNBC, on NBC. They got correspondents wearing masks as they report.
Yeah.
In the state, this could also be a
Still.
for the Democratic Senate candidate. There's also a governor's race here in this state that we're watching. Democratic governor doing very well. This has been a big referendum on him when it came to the state's COVID restrictions, because in this state, compared to other states like South Carolina, Georgia, you still see several different restrictions in place for businesses. And while you have plenty of Republicans that are saying they want to see the state reopen, the governor taking a much more cautious approach. And it's been curious to see whether or not that was going to be what voters were focused on the most here, not just where we are in this part of North Carolina, but throughout the entire state. At Tillis headquarters, it may look like there's nobody right here behind me, but there are plenty of people in this room. Everyone is wearing the masks, not just the media, but also Tillis' supporters, an indication that they're taking things seriously, not only with just COVID, but with how the state sees their operation here.
Yeah, taking it serious.
Thank you.
Keeping it real.
The House for control.
Keeping it real.
To the Democrats, but interesting races along the way. Madison
What a
Cawthorn
bunch of
will
idiots.
win in North Carolina. That is Mark Meadows, the White House Chief of Staff's seat. He had a bumpy road there in the campaign. He will become the youngest member of Congress.
He's paralyzed from the waist down. People might remember him from the Republican National Convention, standing up on the stage during that, but he ran into some controversy along the way and secured that seat. Ronnie Jackson, also of note in Texas, not a huge surprise win, but you may know that he was the president's doctor at the White House at one point, and Ronnie Jackson will now also be a member of Congress.
So through the night, we'll pepper some of those interesting races, even though control will stay with the Democrats.
So let's get some analysis from Molly Hemingway, who is joining us now, senior editor at The Federalist, and Byron New York, Washington Examiner correspondent. Both are Fox News contributors. Great to have both
They're
of you
both pretty good
this evening. Molly, your observations on the evening so far?
Well, we know a little bit about a lot of states. It would be nice to know a lot more about a few states that are out there. But one of the things that is definitely an emerging story is about the closing of the racial gap. There's usually a pretty big racial gap in voting where minorities strongly favor Democratic candidates. And Donald Trump obviously is doing very well in Florida on the strength of not just Cuban voters, but also Venezuelan and Colombian and other minority voters. And they're starting
Yeah,
to
Colombians hate communists
in
too.
other states as well. You know, in Texas, Joe Biden is underperforming, in Ohio and Georgia, in these minority communities. It is really stunning that it is Donald Trump, someone that the media have painted as, you know, a racist racial demagogue, who is managing this transformation of the Republican Party toward a more multiracial working class party. And regardless of what the eventual outcome is tonight, that's something that Republican strategists have to be thinking long and hard about, that the way that Donald Trump has been able to get more outreach and get more buy-in from minority voters has been through this conservative populism that he advocates. It's a really interesting thing that we know thus far as we wait to learn more.
Look how Trump's taking the lead in Georgia.
Trump supporters say not only was he running against Joe Biden, but he was running against the mainstream media over 3+ years of kind of really battling back and forth. Your thoughts about this race, where it stands, and kind of that framework?
Yeah. Well, you know, I spent the last week of the race in Pennsylvania talking to a lot of Republicans who all strongly believed that there was something they called the hidden Trump vote, that there were people out there who intended to vote for Trump, but who did not tell not only pollsters, and that's where the media comes in, because they associated all pollsters with the media and they did not trust them. But some of them also didn't tell their friends or their coworkers or even their family. And I talked to some pollsters who were working for the larger Trump effort, and they believed it was a 2, maybe 3 percentage points. Maybe that's what we're seeing in Florida right now. On the other hand, not sure you can make that case in Georgia and North Carolina right now, but clearly the level of hostility and distrust toward the media among supporters is just off the scale.
Yep.
I'll stay with you for a moment. When you look at what Molly was discussing, you know, we see in a number of states the president coming in the 30% range with Latino voters in places where there's a large presence of those voters. Do you agree with Molly that we're seeing, you know, sort of an attraction to President Trump from those voters that we haven't seen in the past?
Yeah, that's a potentially huge development. Remember, after the 2012 presidential election, Mitt Romney lost to Barack Obama. The RNC, the Republican National Committee, did this huge study. They called it the autopsy. And the only conclusion they came to was that Republicans had to do more to attract Hispanic voters. And if President Trump is in fact attracting more minority voters, Black and Hispanic and other minority voters, I mean, that's a very, very big deal for him. It's kind of ironic that some of the people who were involved in the RNC study opposed President Trump very, very strongly. But nonetheless, this is something the Republican Party has been trying to do for a long time.
And in addition to all of that, Molly, COVID is basically on this ballot as well.
Well, I think that is another issue that has been a very important thing for the Biden campaign to push, and also many people in the media. I think it is interesting that you were just talking about the feeling that Trump is running not just against Joe Biden, but the media. There were so many different ways that the media assisted the Joe Biden campaign throughout his entire campaign once he won the nomination. Prior to winning the nomination, they weren't so sure, but then they all got on board. Whether that was hiding negative stories about Joe Biden, hiding positive stories about President Donald Trump hiding successes or whatnot, elevating the campaign themes that the Biden campaign wanted, or really an overemphasis on polls. We know enough right now to know that there has been too much emphasis on polling as opposed to the larger issues. Florida was supposed to be a win for Biden. Some people had it a strong win for Biden. It is not going to be. And that is interesting. And if we could have covered more about how the Democrats' left-leaning push toward some of these socialist messages, how that didn't resonate with minority voters and other people, that would be an important thing for us to know, that if we rely too much on polling, we miss some of these stories that we could find out by talking more to the people who will be voting.
Last thing, turning to the Senate, Byron, we've got the race in Michigan, John James versus incumbent Gary Peters. That seems like it's a very tight race, and there was a lot of prospect for John James. And as you look at it here, again, this is only 19% of the precincts in Michigan, but how the president does in Michigan will affect this race. Going in, James was outperforming the president in some polls by a couple of points.
I think you're going to see in some other states the Senate candidate outperforming the president. That one would be a very big deal. We all assumed, although it hasn't been called, that there would be a Republican pickup in Alabama, where Doug Jones would lose his seat there. In Michigan, you have a Republican challenging an incumbent Democrat. So Republicans, the way they had looked at this race is they got 53 right now. They pick up one with Alabama, and then they start subtracting. And Cory Gardner has already lost tonight. Michigan could be a huge, huge factor in Republicans keeping the Senate.
Molly, let's take a look at the South Carolina Senate race as well. Lindsey Graham versus Jamie Harrison.
Lady G.
This has obviously gotten a ton of attention. Millions of dollars poured into this race, and this is how it shapes up right now. Also pointing out that we're just at 29% of the count in there.
Why would you get rid of an influential guy like Lindsey Graham, who does all kinds of good things for your state?
Where again, you had some early polls showing that Jamie Harrison was really strongly contending with Lindsey Graham. A lot of savvy South Carolinian watchers said that wasn't actually true, that these Quinnipiac polls were quite wrong. And I think tonight you will see evidence of that. However, those polls were very important for getting money to pour into that state. That race saw so much money raised to defeat
Fake polls to raise money. Listen to that.
But also, I just want to say it's a good thing to remind people that a lot of these results that we're seeing when states first close and you're starting to get results are those early votes. And it's worth remembering that the Democratic strategy was to get as many people early voting as possible. And so I think sometimes people are surprised when they see a race flipping so much from strong Democratic support initially as the early votes are returned into the later results. And part of that is a reflection of slightly different practices in how the Democratic
Funny, a lot of our viewers are hoping
go about
Virginia somehow
Molly and Byron,
turns
thank
red.
you so much.
That'd
Very
be great.
interesting. Speaking about flipping, our casino owner here in studio, Britt Hume, follows the betting odds, and you're saying the betting odds have just flipped?
The betting odds have flipped completely. You may recall that they were sitting about 64, 65 for Biden, and they went down to 59. Now they've completely flipped. 64.8% Trump, 37% Biden. Now this is
Wow.
years ago when that race turned around, something like this time in the evening. The betting odds led the way. Now, look, they're just betting odds. They're not votes. They're not electoral votes, certainly, but they're interesting. Something's going on. I mean, I'm hearing from various corners that North Carolina is looking increasingly good for Trump, that Ohio is looking good for Trump, that he's certainly got Florida. So Pennsylvania, here we come.
Betting odds tell you a lot because that's people spending their actual money. They don't do it to lose.
They do their research.
Nothing surprising
Exactly. They
has
do their
happened
research.
tonight. In fact, each team has held the states they were expected to win. They say in a basketball series or World Series that it really doesn't start until the visiting team wins on the others on the home field.
New York Times has North Carolina going Trump.
If this night continues the way it is, if Trump is able to hold on to Florida and Georgia and North Carolina.
Well, that's one occasion where I'd actually believe the New York Times.
I will just point out that it was this time 4 years ago where I sat next to you and you turned to me and said,
They helped me so much to understand the 1619
Donald Trump could be
project.
the 45th president of the United States.
Yes, I did. I'm not going to say that yet tonight because there hasn't been that kind of a change. But in other words, at this point, even if the president were to hold North Carolina and Georgia, it still makes Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, the key states, and whoever wins those states wins the presidency.
Yeah, as I said before, when you do that what if board, it's filling in pretty much the way you would fill in all of these early states, or exactly how you would fill in all these early states. And the states that will decide this, we don't know.
I like the betting line shifting. Good.
The layout here, which is why we are going to speak to our decision desk after this when we come back, and Chris Direwalt will.
They're going to bring in Mitch in a moment.
Mitch, who's that?
McConnell.
Oh, okay. Well, they're going to commercial.
I wouldn't go off, Giuseppe. I'm looking at him here on my laptop, which is a few seconds ahead of what we got there.
Well, Jim, we can't just restream Fox. We'll get popped for. We're already skating close. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to change every once in a while, Professor. So they haven't betting
line. I'm so glad Brett Hume is following the betting line. I think that's very telling. It's not going to shift back. It's going to stay with Trump.
Brett's a degenerate gambler who's been known to party with Hunter Biden.
Who is?
I'm just joking.
Looking forward to seeing him. They are deciding things just all the time in there.
A lot of decision making there. Meantime, we didn't take it live. I think it is. Do they move? Are they living? Can we take a pulse in there?
I wonder how the shit lib channels are taking all this.
Gave a acceptance speech.
We could switch over at some point. We could look at MSNBC
for Republic, where the people choose our representatives.
Grateful to be.
He knows. Listen, he knows what's going on.
Nation in history. And Kentucky, I'm humbled and grateful that you've rehired me to keep fighting for your families and serving our Commonwealth for the next 6 years.
He knows how every single Senate race is going down to the
away from ordinary Medicare Advantage plans and choose Kaiser.
Flip it if you want, Giuseppe. Go.
Yeah.
Try CNN.
Oh,
want to go to CNN? Okay. Yeah, MSNBC is just so off the chain.
Yeah, I don't think MSNBC is 100% propaganda 24/7.
Well, we might see some good crying coming up soon, guys.
Hope so. Here we go. Here's helpful Timbo.
From deep
I don't like that.
CNN Politics Podcasts had you covered. The Act Files.
Trump victory tonight, then mail-in swings to Biden and Harris, and we get systemic race theory and the Great Reset.
That's been the thing I've been concerned about too. That exact scenario. That's funny.
It is not over. We are still watching them, but the whole MO of the Biden campaign from the beginning was to rebuild that blue wall. And there's also another state that's going to come in later, which is Arizona. And that is still one that the Biden campaign is really hoping to finally flip from red to blue.
Yeah, and that we also are looking at a situation in which
I just got a text from a friend of mine who's watching us, and they say Fox Business Channel is covering it way better than Fox. Should we try them too?
Who? Maybe because of
Fox Business Channel? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Which is fine.
Let me look and see.
But it's election day, and you have to actually win the state in order for it to matter. So, we don't know what's going to happen yet, but this is a map that, as you just said, is probably just going to come down to what we always thought it would come down to, that blue wall up there.
Peter, thank you for suggesting Fox Business.
Trump leading in Virginia, even though they called it for Biden.
We should say have not conceded any Florida or Georgia or North Carolina, and they feel very good. They still feel good about North Carolina. They still feel very positive about Arizona.
But it's
just not going to be as some Democrats were hoping for. that they thought it was going to be an early landslide, which was really always a pipe.
And Jim, you wanted a landslide too. That's funny. Everybody wanted a landslide.
No way, given the numbers that we've seen, particularly when you start the night in Florida, when it's as tight as Florida tends to be, and it's maybe even less so right now as they continue to count the votes. What is interesting is Florida, one of the reasons why the Biden campaign thinks that they're doing not as well as they hoped is because they're really underperforming with Latino voters. They're hoping to change that dynamic in a big way when Arizona starts to count the votes, that they're hoping that that is what helps to buoy them.
So once we can match that up with the vote that's coming in, we know how good our surveys were. We know how good of a job we did, along with our partners at the Associated.
Can we drop helpful, Timbo?
Chicago National Opinion Research Center.
This is Fox Business now,
right? Is the turkey done? And the turkey's done in Virginia.
You're sure?
Yep.
Okay, if it's not, you're coming back.
Yeah, you're coming back.
I'm happy. I'm happy to, as a West Virginian. I'm always happy to come back and talk.
That looks like it's the same as Fox, what we were watching.
Yep, let's go to Florida.
Yeah, it is.
What do you think? Florida, it's 93% in our probability meter. Let's call it.
Well, if a probability meter was a decision desk, what would we do? You'd just get rid of us, and Dana would save all that money on candy.
Now it's 95%, by the way.
The president is leading in Florida. It's not unreasonable for his campaign to be optimistic about Florida, but we would also remember that Florida is a land of alligators when it comes to calling races. And there's just no reason for us right now to take a chance on calling Florida, where there is still a considerable amount of vote out, and we're not quite sure given the high numbers of early votes. So we're just not quite there yet.
What about this thing about the absentee ballots requested in different states, Florida, North Carolina, and the ones that came back received? We know that there's a percentage every year, as Karl Rove talked about, that they just don't vote. It's usually 5-8% that don't get returned. But there's, when you're talking a big number, like hundreds of thousands of absentee ballots that have not come back.
Well, one of the things that makes it challenging for everybody, whether you're watching at home, whether you're on a campaign, whether you're a forecaster, whatever,
is a cohesive
turn up
party
the volume
because
on
one
early and
helps
absentee
the
votes
other
by 50%
in these
right?
up and
We have this
down
massive
slots on the ticket and the race itself. Tillis should be.
Wait, what happened?
Cutting
I
I
got Fox Business. I just got to move it over.
Personal scandal, and the president.
Let's see, I got to do this. I got to go like that. I got to move this here. I got to go turn this on.
History on his side,
and then I got to expand that.
It's going to be. I think Jerry's right. I think that North Carolina has to.
Well, here they've called New York for Biden to keep him ahead of Trump.
Because it's the classic nail.
Here's Fox Business now.
New York.
Is that a cross dresser there? Holy shit, that looks like a dude.
He's behind in part because of at 69%, Trump was behind.
Yikes.
By 231,000. Then he was behind a little bit less, and now with 80%, 82%.
Certainly a masculine looking chin. Yeah.
And at the same time that Jerry pointed out,
I'm a lady.
I'm a lady, don't you know?
Trump's pulling ahead in Ohio.
Final stretch, we'll see.
All right, we're
That's ma'am.
Guys, back to our panel. I will say that right now we're waiting on Iowa and Montana, Nevada, and Utah, which are coming up at the top of the hour. As things stand right now, it is still as tight as a tick between these two candidates. We'll give you the popular vote breakdown. We'll give you the electoral vote breakdown. As things stand right now, Joe Biden's at 129 electoral votes. Donald Trump, of course, at 100.
See, including New York.
We might not get there tonight. As important as that is, I know, to a lot of people looking at this. Even
There's no way Biden takes Nevada, man.
Who was thought to be losing that by a substantial margin, depending on how you look at it, the states that are reporting, he has about a 2 percentage point edge right now. So for the time being, it is the president leading in the popular vote, trailing. You are watching Fox Business.
Trump takes lead in Ohio and Texas, going to win 66% on Betfair. Good, helpful. That was helpful.
Keep up
up to date with the Fox Business app. Get the
Let's turn that off and let's check out here.
Increase in all of these votes, it's going to make these numbers screwy, right? It's going to make things look different. What we do mostly in our work is compare this year to that year. This year to that year. How does it look now versus
yeah, it's interesting that we were led to believe that, oh my God, nothing's going to be known. And a lot of these states are
significant changes.
It's like a regular election. I don't understand why all that fear mongering was going on.
40%.
Yeah, that's very interesting point. But I'll tell you, Pennsylvania, they're going to drag it out and drag it out.
Oh, yeah, right.
It may not matter, though.
Don't worry.
I hope not. I hope Trump has it already in the bag.
They're actually that to scale.
It was nice of them to come and stand on either side of the map with us tonight as we figure all this out.
Let's bring in Bill Hemmer to continue the grilling. Bill Hemmer, you got Chris
I think
Starwall.
Chris is better in the bow tie, but I still like him nonetheless. Chris, good evening.
Oops, my bad.
This is Ohio for our viewers at home because the last
He's taking the lead.
Donald Trump was trailing. Now he's taken a lead in the state of Ohio. He won it by about 7.5 points from 4 years ago. Last time we talked North Carolina, I mentioned it was getting tighter and tighter. Look where the percentages are right now, 0.4%, a raw total of about 20,000 votes between Biden and Trump. Chris, are you able to tell where the outstanding vote is in North Carolina right now?
So because of, again, this mail vote phenomenon, we're not able to say from whence all of these outstanding.
14%, we can't say where it's coming from, but I can tell you these are 3 rural counties right here that are still in gray. I was clicking in there a moment ago. There's not a ton of votes out there, but all 3 of those counties Donald Trump won in 2016. So the margin could change, but when you're talking about 20,000, you want to see it? Here we go. Go back to 2016. This is Caswell County, North Carolina. President beat Hillary Clinton by about 1,000 votes in 2016. What was the other one? Over here in Franklin County, President knocked off Hillary Clinton there by about 4,000 votes. So you got 5,000 votes right there, Chris, and we'll see how that comes in. One more state I want to point out, guys, because the map is starting to expand. Come back to 2020 here. Chris, this is Michigan with 20% of the vote in. You see the numbers tick there, real time again. This is Detroit down here. This Grand Rapids out here where the president was the other day. Wayne County, Michigan has a ton of votes in that state. And we're just cracking the surface right now for what Detroit could bring in for Joe Biden. Hillary Clinton clocked in at 500,000 votes in 2016. So we're starting to see a little bit of expansion in the map. As we move away from some of the races we were watching earlier today, Florida right now, again, about 3.5 points, 9% of the vote out. I'll come up to Georgia and show you what we're getting here now. Half the vote is in Georgia. Chris, I don't know what you see in Peach State, but Donald Trump right now with a 14-point lead. Fulton County is critical, a lot of votes there. I don't know what the holdup is in Atlanta,
What's that?
Chris.
It's the busted pipe.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, they better find a plug pretty soon because the votes are scarce at the moment. What do you see there, Chris?
So look, we're accustomed, whether you're talking about Georgia or whether you're talking about Michigan or any state that is, like America, a couple of blue dots in a big red ocean. It takes a lot longer to get all those votes in the densely populated urban areas in. And this is the rough math of every presidential election and in every swing state, because basically it's the city mice versus the country mice each time. This election is no different in that way, even if you add in the complexity of having the mail vote and the early vote. The truth is it's so much more densely populated in those cities. It just takes longer to get through in those counties.
Let me interrupt here. Is Joe Biden outperforming where we had him going in, or is Donald Trump outperforming?
I think it's too early to know that. I think Chris would agree with me in some of these critical states.
I think so far, how did Brother Wallace put it? He said that nobody had won a game on the road on the opposing team's home field yet. I think that's true so far. And we have not had an event take place yet that says that there's not been some cataclysm for either campaign yet. But as you guys point out, the clock is really running. And we are the map is expanding quickly, and a lot more electoral votes are on the table now. And here we go.
I would just say these are the blue dots in Ohio from 2000. This makes your point, Chris. Right? This is Cincinnati, Hamilton County. This is Columbus, Franklin County.
I thought Cincinnati was conservative.
Ohio. I think it doesn't repeat itself all over the country, but that's a pretty good marker. Again, I'm showing you numbers from 4 years ago, but Michigan's quite similar. Here are the votes down here for Democrats, right? I mean, southeastern corner, Wayne County, Detroit, Pennsylvania, same year, same story. This is Allegheny County, Pittsburgh, and this is Philadelphia over here in the surrounding counties, the collar counties.
Man, if Trump wins, can you imagine what's going to happen in Philly? Holy cow.
Pennsylvania come from 5 counties.
Oh, I meant to report.
That's really what this is
colleague
about.
of mine from Cleveland
across the country.
Said that Barack Obama has organized
the coast on red counties.
Protests in 500 cities across the nation if Trump wins.
Really?
For tomorrow.
Wow.
500. Barack Obama.
What a traitor, man. What a joke.
He's not POTUS, he's POS.
Pittsburgh, as we point out, also down here.
Big Mike.
You know, when you look at
Big
we
Mike.
talk so much
Big
about
Mike.
5% undecided voter.
What a
and, you know, when I
beast.
go through
Oh,
these
what an offensive
states, it adds
beast.
up that most people, 70 to 80%, basically said they've known all along who they were going to vote for. And in a place like Ohio, they're pretty evenly split. But the 5%, the 3%, whatever it is, who were undecided, what have we learned tonight so far about which way they're breaking?
Well, and don't forget, a lot of those undecided voters, or a substantial portion of those undecided voters, didn't vote, right? If you're undecided late enough, you may just say, I can't do it. I can't pull the trigger for either one of these guys. And so a lot of them will do that. We can't dispositively say nationally in which way the undecideds broke, but we know that they didn't break for Trump the way they did when he was running as effectively a challenger 4 years ago.
Yes, Alex, what do you think about Obama and
which is when he was an unknown
ally
years ago, a huge number of undecided
organized
open seat
protests in 500 cities, Alex, if their preferred candidate, Joe Biden, doesn't win.
We've been living in this, it's been a Groundhog Day election. We've been living in basically the same
Hard to
concept
believe,
of this
Jim.
race
Hard to believe.
from day one.
Yeah, that's a lot of cities.
You know, what we've seen, the barnstorming over the past several days, and we saw the polls moving a little bit, and some of them going a little bit in Trump's direction. So
He's reporting all-time off has been canceled for tomorrow in his city.
Wow. For him in some of these places, or are these numbers telling us?
Interesting.
Well, we know that Donald Trump's base.
That's
is
right.
Donald
Be
Trump's
safe
base,
out
and they're
there.
Fired up for him. They will vote. They will stand out in the freezing cold to go to a rally. They will do anything. So turning up his base wasn't really a big problem for him. The question is, were they counter motivators for Democrats in those urban areas who see Trump on television 5 times a day?
Oh, Trump's ahead now in Texas. That's good.
And that stuff, and that they get fired up to go vote too.
We're going to make some calls. You're not even in with the decision desk,
I know.
but I want to ask you
We'll tell you what they
one
are.
more thing. Trump's biggest vulnerability, as you see it right now on this map. Biden's biggest vulnerability, as you see it right now on this map.
Just think of the Mason-Dixon line. Anything south of the Mason-Dixon line, that south of the border of Pennsylvania, that Joe Biden wins is big trouble for Donald Trump. And conversely, any contested state north of the Mason-Dixon line that Trump can win is real good news for him among the contested states. And we've got a bunch clustered right now that we're ready. It sounds like you know more than I do.
It's funny
We
that
got a lot
even
of popcorn ready to
160
pop.
years after the
We're
Civil
watching you
War,
on
the
Virginia.
country's
So
still
I just wanna
divided.
put you on notice.
Oh, yeah.
We're watching.
Got all your
Okay.
chips on that.
Thank you, Chris.
You bet.
So
Let's see what happens.
Decision desk, minus Chris Stirewalt for just a minute, has made some decisions that we want to share with you. President Trump will defeat former Vice President Joe Biden in the state of South Carolina tonight decisively.
And a big one, Fox News can also project that Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina will
Lady
win
G.
re-election by defeating Democratic challenger James Harrison, who managed to throw a scare into Graham, a big one, during a hard-fought campaign. Lindsey Graham will not say his website on any more interviews. He has managed to hold off and will win in South Carolina. And that is a big thing for the Republicans, Chris Wallace, because Lindsey Graham, he was threatened. They thought that Harrison could really take him out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Harris raised an enormous
Let's
amount
go
of money.
to let's
tens
go
of
to
millions of
the
dollars.
I can't stand Chris Wallace. He's such a sniveling weasel. But I wanted to go to Fox Business. Let's check out CNN. Let's check out this guy. Hey, this guy.
Going to build, right? Because you've been running it up all night. You have more votes to come in. The challenge this year is the mail-in in-person early election day vote, they're different, right? We know Republicans were more likely to come out today. Democrats were more likely to vote early. So the normal rules don't always apply. You have to find out what's missing. So let's pull it out a little bit more and come on the map and look at it, see if anything's changed while we've been here. I just want to check on the size of the president's lead here. 179,000 votes in Texas and some change. So we're going to wait in Texas as well. Just want to see how we're doing down here in Harris County. This is the largest county in the state, 82% of the vote in. So we'll continue to watch that.
Carl Rowe called the Texas thing, right?
Oh, yeah. If they already have 82% in Houston and the rural counties.
That's not how we pick a president, though, Wolf. And
Yeah, they're not voting Biden.
We're only moments away, John, from another round of poll closings. Voting is about to end in 4 states, including the key battlegrounds of Iowa and Nevada. A total of 21 electoral votes.
That's a cool point, Golden Pipe Wrench.
We got a key race alert right now.
Wokeness dies.
We believe it's too early to call in Iowa, for example, 6 electoral votes right there. Too early to call.
And plus, Helpful Timbo, Latino doesn't really mean very much. It depends on what country these people are from. There's a huge difference.
Votes there. It's too
You
early.
say that, Scorpio, but it's a widely used category for voters here that encompasses quite a few variations. So
there you can see.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't think it's a very useful term.
Biden is still ahead. He has 89 electoral college votes. Trump has 72 electoral college votes. Let's get a key race alert.
Wolf Blitzer, as he's aging, looks more and more like a stereotypical Hebrew.
Vote is in Ohio. Trump is ahead by 100.
Long-time CIA.
50.5%.
And Mossad.
And Mossad.
In North Carolina.
Anderson Cooper, too, long-time CIA.
Yeah.
A very small lead of nearly 30.
Wolf Blitzer's got to be like 5'3" or so, man.
49.1%.
Yeah.
In Minnesota right now.
He's a little guy.
The vote is in. Biden has a relatively comfortable 300,000 vote lead over Trump, 64.2% to 33.8%. In New Hampshire, more than a quarter of the vote is in. 26% of the vote is in. Biden has a nearly 20,000 vote lead over Trump, 53.6% to 45.1%. We've got 7 more states we want to check out right now. Let's check out Florida.
Popular vote lead has increased.
With 93%.
Good one, Heath. That's funny.
He's got a lead of 382,000 votes over Biden. In Florida, 29 electoral votes in Florida. In Pennsylvania, only 20% of the vote is in. Trump is ahead by some 46,000 votes.
Good.
7.7
ahead.
In Pennsylvania. In Michigan right now, a quarter of the vote almost.
Very good.
Trump is ahead by 228,000 votes, but it's early. 23%.
Tucker back on Fox.
57%.
Okay.
In Texas, 77% of the vote is in. Trump.
So Trump's going to take Texas for sure.
Let's see here.
We didn't have any serious doubt about it.
In play right now, we have a lot of things cooking, a lot of raw vote total that's coming in addition to our voter analysis. And the next polls will close in just a matter of seconds. And when they do, we will make some more calls. It's starting to get where anything can pop at any moment.
Yeah, these Senate races are coming in quickly as well. As we said, Senator
Trump ahead in Pennsylvania, too.
Close race in North Carolina closely as well as we count down to
Well, it looks like we're going to have the results tonight.
Maybe.
A lot of them. They're bringing Tucker in now.
It is 10 o'clock here in New York City. Polls have just closed in another
This is
4
delayed.
states. Let's start
It
with
says 10
Iowa, where
o'clock.
President Trump
Why
is
is it
locked in
so
a close
late?
race with former
Why
Vice
are we
President
so
Joe Biden.
delayed?
According to our decision desk, it's too early to project a winner in Iowa. The other state we're watching very closely at this hour is Nevada, where our vote analysis shows Biden ahead of Trump at the moment, although we'll need to analyze more data from Nevada before making a call there.
Meanwhile, President Trump is ahead of the former vice president in a pair of western states. The first is Utah, home to Republican Senator Mitt Romney, and a frequent Trump critic, as we well know. And the other is Montana, a traditional Republican stronghold. Our decision desk still not quite ready to declare winners in either of those states yet tonight.
So if we look at our electoral map, where it stands right now and our lovely standing candidates, it is 129 to 109. Remember that 270 is the magic number to win the presidency. And you see those yellow states, obviously those have...
I'm watching Tucker on the other screen.
We have not called them yet, and that is where this race is really being
What
battled.
screen is that?
You have North Carolina.
A laptop.
You have Florida that we haven't called yet, although
This
Donald
is
Trump has a
Fox,
big
though.
lead
This is
now.
Fox News.
Continue to come in tonight. Let's bring in Tucker Carlson once
Oh,
again.
it's just
Tucker
delayed.
Carlson
This is
tonight. Tucker,
delayed.
great to talk to you tonight. Obviously, this is a historic evening, always, when the nation comes together to elect a president. This has been a very hard-fought race, and we still have so much that's undecided. Your thoughts at 10:01 Eastern?
I think Mitt Romney had lost by this point when he ran for president. So there's a lot to learn, of course, and I sincerely don't know what the outcome will be, but I just cannot get over my total surprise at the disconnect between what we're watching on the screen and what has been confidently predicted across the media landscape for months, that there was a very good chance of a blue wave, of a total Biden blowout, of an early night. And I could get much more specific about this, and I think we'll probably spend the next couple of months doing that because it's worth doing. But suffice it to say, and anyone watching and who's consumed any media this year knows that the media, even on the basis of the data we have now, got it really wrong. And they'll claim they didn't because they always do, but they did. And we know that. And why is this a problem? It's a problem because in the end, we know who the president is because the media tell us who the president is. The campaign manager for the Joe Biden effort today sent out a tweet saying, in effect, you know, we will, if announced that Joe Biden won by the media, then, you know, we will consider that a victory. And then they said on background to a bunch of other news organizations, the second the media declared Joe Biden the president, he will begin, in effect, acting like the president. So you can't really overstate the role of the media in adding legitimacy and conveying legitimacy to the winner. We're not just observers, we're participants, as much as we hate to admit it. So given all of that, it really matters whether or not we're credible. And I would say in some very specific ways, we, the media, I participated in it for 30 years, have not been credible. We have lost trust. And that's just, I think that's really bad. And it's something that we need to fix. And the obvious problem is something we said we were going to correct in 2016, which is we don't know anybody who votes for Trump. And so you really got the sense watching everybody that, like, you know, it's kind of embarrassing to support Trump or whatever. And that's why the rallies were such a huge shock to a lot of people in the last week. All these people unapologetically saying, I love Donald Trump. And it's like, I've never met anybody who says something. Who are these people? We have a huge problem in our business with being cut off from the country we cover. And I would say a lot of power centers in this country have that problem, but we have it in the media. And I really sincerely hope we fix it because we're moving toward like zero credibility, and that's bad.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to Molly Hemingway earlier in the show about the president and his supporters feeling like he was not running only against Joe Biden, but was running against a lot of the media as well. He couldn't get on some of those rallies. We aired rallies from Democrats and the president throughout this process, but they always felt like it was an uphill battle. He still has a path to 270 tonight, and as Britt mentions every few minutes, the betting odds are increasing for President Trump.
Well, they are. And I have to say, because I think I'm bitter about it and it's worth being bitter about. We found out in the final days of this campaign that members of the president's family were under an active FBI investigation into business deals that I think pretty
Vice President,
he knew about, parts of which he approved of. Tony Bobulinski was a direct participant in those conversations with the former vice president.
I'm at this interactive 270 to win map.
He was involved.
It looks to me like Ohio, Pennsylvania, North Carolina are the keys to Trump winning.
Apart from Fox News, it was completely ignored on purpose.
I can pull it over a little in a minute, and we can look at it together once Tucker's done.
Tucker's making very important points.
Now, it's not just a matter of being annoyed that the media are liberal or whatever. They've always been liberal. That's fine. I'm not mad about that. I accept it as reality. Why it's scary is that on a night like tonight, the whole country, 350 million of us, will only know who the president is when the media tell us. And so it's very important for the media to behave in ways that allow us to trust them. It's important for the future of the country, I think.
Tucker? As always, thank you. It's
Thank you.
great to have your perspective on election night. We've got our panel looking deep into these numbers.
Tucker is just so
down in
sensational.
Brazil. Donna, let me start with you. There are some of these calls that we haven't made yet, but seem to be going a little bit more towards Donald Trump's way. What are you seeing?
Well, first of all, we're looking at states that Donald Trump carried in 2016, either by a percentage point or, less than
What a beast.
4%.
She's the she-beast married to the scummy mayor of D.C.
More numbers need to come in. What I'm seeing right
She
now,
is?
again,
Yeah,
I'm an
she's
optimist.
married
I still
to the
believe that there's a
mayor
path for Joe Biden.
of D.C., the aptly named Muriel Bowser.
A gay marriage? She's married to the mayor?
Yep.
No, I haven't changed.
I had no idea.
I still believe that Joe Biden has several paths. Look, we haven't called Georgia, we haven't called North Carolina. Things are trending in Donald Trump's direction in Florida. Ohio is still up. Pennsylvania has not come in. Arizona, Michigan, Minnesota, Texas, Wisconsin. So the night is still young. So I'm not ready to light a cigar or pop open a good bottle of champagne because there's a lot of votes that are still outstanding.
Yeah, we've got states all across the bottom of your screen right now that are too early to call, all of which are very important states in this. Carl, I want to ask you about this from Philadelphia. There's a report from Politico that says that Philadelphia officials say that they will not be reporting any more mail ballots tonight. About 76,000 have been tallied so far out of 350,000 that have been received. Does that surprise you? And, everybody obviously is watching Pennsylvania really closely. We'll probably be watching it for many days to come, it looks like.
Well, first of all, secure the ballots. Let's make certain that's done. I am a little surprised because, you'd think they'd want to get this done. And we know that Pennsylvania is going to it's going to be Friday before they're able to sort of cut it off. This is a state that was supposed to have all the mail-in ballots received by tonight. By close of business, but instead they used some administrative measures and a court decision to move it till Friday. So I'd keep the people at it, but they may just say our progress is such, give them the benefit of the doubt. Our progress is such that we don't need to work 24 hours a day. We can get this thing done in the next.
Yeah, so they can swap out the ballots.
Certainly before the deadline of Friday. But it's better that we have these contests settled sooner rather than later, even if it is an unofficial count and has to be subsequently certified by the Secretary of State.
Carl, while we have you, where are you on Texas? Are you bullish on a Trump?
Texas, all hail the mighty state. Of course, it's going to be red. John Cornyn.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. The one in the musical interlude here. Can I say something about North Carolina?
Wait. So you're done with Texas? You think it's GOP?
Yeah. Just a little ditty.
The Republicans will carry it on the presidential level. I'm looking at the number. Senator Cornyn is running like 6 points ahead of his Democratic challenger, despite the fact that something like $50 million is spent in the last 6 weeks, including $28 million by Silicon Valley Kayacon in the last week. And not only that, but the Republicans are going to keep the State House of Representatives, which, as I said earlier, was just a gigantic.
It's interesting. You used to always hear John Cornyn's name on the national media, and you never hear it anymore.
Well, let me say something about North Carolina. This is why election nights are so interesting, because you may have just noticed that Trump's margin has grown a little bit. And not only that, but Tom Tillis is now leading in the Senate race. And what's interesting to me is it's a handful of counties. Mecklenburg, which is Charlotte, and Wake, which is Raleigh, and Greensboro, which is surprisingly enough Greensboro, they're sort of mostly all in. And what was happening is that a handful of counties, Union and Johnston were the biggest ones, and then there are Franklin, Granville, and Caswell, smaller counties. They hadn't.
App reality check is confident.
Union County, which is just to the east of Charlotte, and
like that,
just to the east of Wake, Johnston started to come in and flipped it, because these counties, Union County went last time around 81-19 Republican. Johnston County went 64-32.
Tell you what, Turd Blossom, let's do this electoral interactive map. It's pretty cool. Where is it? Here we go.
How does it get to 350? That's fascinating.
We should do our own content a little bit now. Okay, so here right now, I browned out the states that are questionable. Do you think that Trump can win Arizona?
Yes.
All right, let's make it red then. Okay, how about Iowa?
Yo, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now, how about do we consider Michigan going to Trump?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm not
Yeah,
so
he's
sure
way
about
ahead right now.
Wisconsin.
Yes. Wisconsin too.
Well, let's leave it neutral for now. Okay, so this puts Trump at 241.
You didn't mark Michigan.
Oh, he is. He already is. I just made it redder.
Okay. And he's taking Florida for a certainty.
Yeah, it's already there. It's just not, any kind of shade is in his category already.
So how many?
Okay, so right now we have undecided Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina.
North Carolina is going for Trump for sure.
Okay. All right. So that puts him at 256. So Pennsylvania is so messed up with this mail-in ballot and the.
Listen, he's going to take Ohio.
Okay. That gives him 274. He's reelected.
All right. There you go.
There you go. So Wisconsin, which I'd be shocked if Wisconsin didn't vote him back in. I mean, I would be shocked.
Me too.
But even Wisconsin, which is neutral in PA, and so we're certain. Are you sure about Arizona though?
Well, you mean if you took out Arizona, then he's one short or something?
Right. Without Arizona, he's 8 short. Well, so he needs. Okay, so these questionable states, Arizona, Wisconsin, and PA. He needs one of them to be reelected. So what's the most likely one that he will?
How many votes does Wisconsin give him? How many does Wisconsin give him?
10. It would put him over. See, he'd be 273 with Wisconsin.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah,
So
I don't think Arizona's a sure thing for him at all.
No, I don't either.
I'm not saying it's a sure thing. I was saying, I would like it to go. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
We still those three. I think you're probably right. Those three are the key three. Texas is a pale red. Yeah, you got it a pale red.
It's hard to believe that Biden would take Nevada.
Yeah, Nevada, right. I think Nevada should not go to Biden.
No,
let's make it neutral then.
He's promising lockdowns and more restrictions. It's going to completely screw 90% of the people in the state, man.
So isn't it interesting how it always comes down to just a few key states? And I would be so offended if it came down to Pennsylvania and all its corrupt chicanery with that.
Yeah.
That would be, hopefully he wins.
I think the Democrats are focusing on stealing Pennsylvania over any other effort.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Yes. They have till November 12th. I mean, what's up with that?
What's up with that? So, all right. So, yeah, I mean, the whole idea of, but, where is more of the outrage, like in Minnesota? How can they vote Biden after what was done to that state with that St. Floyd of fentanyl?
It's a form of suicide. It's a form of political suicide.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
Good point. Yeah. So, looking at it this way,
Trump's ahead in Wisconsin, 51-46 right now.
But what's the percentage?
I just said 51. Of the vote in?
Yeah.
32.
Okay, so that's early. Well, let's go back to
39. Actually, 39.
39.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that was useful.
Yeah, that was cool.
Was good. Let me just reload Fox, and so we're not 5 minutes behind.
I'll be upset if my own state does not go for Trump.
Yeah, right.
I'm talking Arizona now. They got Biden up. Oh, they're talking about specific counties. You're going to get it now. If you go back to Fox, you're going to get it. You're going to get a discussion of Wisconsin. And I can't believe This projection is so far behind what I'm seeing over here. I mean, it's minutes behind.
2020. And we'll see how much more we get in here in Arizona.
Yeah, and I just reloaded it live.
We knew
So
they
this
closed
is
at 9. They would not
Okay, now that's where I am now. Now,
oh,
now
okay.
together.
Okay. Yeah, that's where I went to reload it. Okay.
So in Arizona, like those other states,
Wow.
the
A
early
lot of
vote-
illegal aliens in Arizona too, just
Sure.
like Colorado.
6 out of 10 towards Biden in pretty much every state. But then the vote seems to fill in, as we've seen in these other states.
Yeah, it's the same trend, right, Brett? I mean, the skew is blue, and then it changes throughout the course of the night. I mean, that's been the pattern back here.
Hard to believe Arizona would be blue.
That's been the pattern down here. And
I agree. That's very, very odd.
Florida.
Yeah. Well, it's the illegal alien factor, just like Colorado, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Georgia's
Yeah.
shaping up to be the same way.
Yeah, I mean, this whole question about.
Oh, here's an interesting comment by Holly
about whether
Beth.
There's a path through the Sun Belt or through the Rust
Yeah,
Belt,
I agree. That's a good comment.
Didn't vote for Trump. I love it.
at Arizona, and I saw that there's a pretty.
They're
decent
very sensible people, the Amish.
In
And they
favor.
Absolutely. They refuse vaccination. They are wise people.
And they don't like all the bizarre bisexual and all this weird stuff with the Democrats, not to mention looting and rioting.
All the latest data.
Yeah, right.
Decision desk as it comes in.
Here's
Plus
more from Golden
Ingram
Pipe
is on deck
Wrench.
to join us as our Democracy 2020 coverage rolls
Good.
after this.
Very good. We're getting some good reports from our people.
Oh, Golden Pipe Wrench is sharp,
Break away
sharp
from ordinary
guy.
Medicare Advantage plans and choose.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you can put something else while you got the commercial if you want.
Helpful Timbo.
Okay,
a ton of blue here, but you come back to 2012. This is the difference, right? Can Joe Biden, can the guy who was number 2 to Barack Obama on the ticket win back some of these areas that Barack Obama
Now
won
they're
when he
saying
carried these
VA
states,
too
many of them
early to
quite
call?
convincingly. You see
Good,
this
I
is
hope
Mitt Romney's
so.
birth state. I know he moved to Massachusetts.
Virginia?
He was born.
Yeah, look at
And
crucial
Barack Obama beat
battleground
him by
states.
10
They
points.
list
So the
Virginia.
question is, can Joe Biden get
Last
this county
one.
back?
Oh, that's good. In other words, the premature Virginia call may have been totally a psyop, as I was suggesting.
Can you say, wow, if you're a Democrat? you
Man,
say,
I
I didn't see
can't.
how they could have called it so quickly.
Certainly do. Let's go.
Especially because
But that's
there's
the explanation. It was a psyop.
We need to
Right.
viewers out there. It's early. Whether you're rooting for Trump or you're rooting for
Yeah,
Biden.
but it would be if Virginia goes for Trump.
I don't know if this is 2016
Okay.
or 2018. You might remember in
let's switch over to that. This is election headquarters need to know. Here we go. Okay, so if we move Virginia,
switch it to red, and he's there. He's there.
it doesn't even matter what happens with Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, or PA. If he
Wow.
gets Virginia,
Good.
yeah.
That's huge.
Paths were so narrow, you know, they couldn't see how he could do it. Here we got like 5 different scenarios where he could do it.
We're ahead of the
Yeah.
curve, guys. Telling you.
Yeah, you know, Jim, man, you hit it. You're such a genius. The PSYOP was so strong. So it turns out they tried to panic people to not go vote because they knew that the silent majority was going to vote for Trump. And so now the silent majority is on the verge of ruling the day, you know, with especially
I love
in Virginia. I mean, these lunatics in Northern Virginia and by Virginia Beach, the rest of the state is intensely conservative, like Mitchell Bupp's area. And
Right.
and to me, the
percent in Trump has 51% of the vote in Florida,
excellent.
and he's got 55% in Georgia, and he's
Really, how
he's at
many?
49.7 in North Carolina, which is 0.6 more than with 91 in North Carolina.
Let's see. So we want
He's going to take North Carolina, Florida, and Georgia, all 3.
that would be great.
29, President Trump at 109, and you see the percentage there, 48.2 to 50.2 as we stand, 0.3, as we stand this evening
They have to reverse Virginia.
at 10:22. So let's get some thoughts tonight from Laura Ingraham, host of the Ingraham Angle, who joins us with her thoughts on how things are looking so far.
I'm a big fan of Laura.
We've got some information and quite a bit more to come in.
Yeah, well, the in-person votes usually are the last to be counted, except with the mail-in ballots that are going to be rolling in postmarked today. So we have to keep that in mind. But I think when we look at Florida and focusing on the GOP for a moment, Martha and Brett, the coalition that the Republicans have been able to put together in that state is really something that they should try to replicate as much as possible going forward up and down the East Coast with a strong contingent of seniors, Latinos, young professionals, African Americans. The Republicans have outperformed, it looks like tonight, across all of those categories with higher turnouts than they had in 2016. So there was a lot of talk about how Biden was going to bring all these new voters to the fore, and indeed we'll probably find that he did. But the other story, which I think you're seeing playing out in state after state tonight, is that Trump brought more people
Holly
into the party
Beth is
and
in
then
South
expanded
Korea.
the base from those blue-collar workers on out. So we'll see what happens as the night goes forward.
We will. We'll upload it.
Is the future for the Republican Party.
Oh, it'll just be
Laura,
there.
this is just an
Once it's
interesting
recorded,
thing. You
it
talk
stays
about this all
there.
the time about the president's policies toward China, being tough on China. Right now, according to the Wall Street Journal, the Chinese yuan
Man, if
has
they
started
can
to
move
tank.
this over, that'd be so sweet.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
It's very significant because it means, at least so far in the evening, they're looking at the betting odds. And I know you've probably talked about that already
Well,
tonight.
Britt has.
Yeah, 64% on the overseas betting now lean toward Trump. And the Chinese are watching all of this. And right now, they are indicating to us that they believe the tariffs that Donald Trump put on a whole swath of Chinese goods, they're here to stay for the foreseeable future. And that obviously hurts their currency, at least in the short term. So that's a significant metric, but it's just how they're reading the data that's coming in.
So Scorpio's crashed, huh?
But I have to say, when we look at the
he
sheer
dropped it?
numbers of
Oh,
people
okay.
who've turned
He'll
out
be
to
back.
vote, we had a very engaged electorate this election season. And there are a lot of people who said that, Joe Biden made a smart call and running on the
There he is.
pandemic and hanging back and letting Trump, go out there and dominate the stage because people were
Foreign betting market, Scorpio,
that was a
64% for
really
Trump.
misguided
What
way
was
of
that?
looking at things. I think
The
as you
foreign betting market is
recovered from COVID,
64% for
it has been nonstop.
Oh.
And I think a lot of folks, as time went on, began to really respect that he was fighting, in their mind, for every vote that he could get in those swing states. And it was a breakneck pace. Obviously, Joe Biden could not keep up with that or didn't want to keep up with it. And those crowds, which, again, a lot of people didn't want to talk about, they were a metric.
Virginia away from Biden and gave it to Trump.
I just
Then I
did
think
not
what
see
are they-
what they did on the other side, at least the emotion of it.
That
or
was
whatever
CNN
that's
who
worth
said
tonight.
that
And,
it's too
I
close
think
to
in
call,
the
but
end,
Fox
the
is
love
keeping
for
it
the
blue.
country, the love for the average worker, they're going to say
Well, Fox let themselves be
right that the left has for Donald Trump, his tone and tweets and some of his past comments.
Laura, a lot of people have wanted the president, people who support him have wanted him to focus more on the economy and on recovering from coronavirus. He really swung around to that.
Laura's got
in a
normal
stronger way
teeth,
in the
man.
final
Check
days
this dude's
as he
teeth out. They're
campaigned
like
through the course of these
white,
rallies. The
white like an
NASDAQ
arc
futures are up over
welding
3%.
torch.
You mean Mark?
And it just reminds me
That's a
of,
good one.
the discussion that was had in
Riker has another
and
good
I want to
comment.
keep reiterating, we've got a long way to go here in this evening tonight. But, it was all doom and gloom that he was going to sort of make all the markets crash. And, would never, ever recover. The stock market would never, ever recover.
Yeah,
Remember that?
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head. In the spring, it was the Great Depression was coming. It was going to be not just a long, dark winter. It was going to be a long.
These are teeth I can trust. These are teeth I can trust.
Recover. How can
His
any
teeth
incumbent
scare
president
me.
overcome a depression, a pandemic, and in concern about his tone?
Look, Wisconsin, Trump,
Possible.
52%.
Whatever people think about
46.
Donald Trump, the personality, he never gave up on his winning formula of policies, which is America first, enforce the border, tighten the labor market, see wages go up, which you saw 6,000 for the average family income, median family income through the last year. These were significant advances for African Americans, Latinos. Some of that is paying off tonight. I think people are worried that we're going to go into a shutdown. We see lockdown happening across Europe. And I think
Right. So that's why I think Trump's going to take Nevada.
Dichotomy.
I'm just saying, if you subtract Biden, Trump's actually in the lead.
Their kids back in school, and I think it began to motivate even some younger voters who, maybe were led to believe on social media that Donald Trump was a terrible, awful, rotten person.
Yeah.
Again, we'll see as the micro-analysis goes forward. But I think a lot of people in Trump country are feeling pretty happy right now.
Yeah, Laura, thank you. I just want to point out 3.6% up on the NASDAQ futures at this point, which is a huge leap. We'll see what happens overnight. Laura, thank you.
Laura, thank you.
very
Let's
much.
head back now across the Hudson.
So even the market is responding to the Trump
beautiful Liberty State Park. Hi again, Harris.
Hello, Brett and Martha. It is time again to hear the voters' voices, and we're going to get some of the grittier issues
She looks
around
like
this
an
election. Some of the
sci-fi alien character.
Latino black voters.
Yeah, from Star Trek.
Voters back with us now, watching the night
These
unfold.
voters' voices are very useful.
Two Joe Biden supporters, Amanda A., Natalie Rojas, and backing President Trump, John L. and
Biden voter here gave just a script that come from the DNC, I'll tell you.
That woman's worthless. I don't want to waste my time listening to her bullshit.
Right
here, a 5.6 million for the president, 5.2 higher turnout in Florida, a very competitive race. Again,
so
we have to
Trump's
wait.
got
We're gonna
Florida,
count
no
some things
doubt.
out. We're not happy.
I think they're showing him with Virginia now, too, if you back up on that.
You think 53-46, you think that's great, but that's way below where Hillary Clinton was 4 years ago. So you're looking at
No,
this
they
map
have
here.
it. They
The
have
plus
it
side for the
white.
Democrats-
They have it white.
For Joe Biden right now, 75%.
No, it
of the
isn't.
vote,
It's white. Right
54
there's
if you round up to
Virginia.
45.
Right there, it's
That's a big
white.
shift
It's on.
from
It's
4 years ago.
They're not
when the
calling it.
president won at 49, 45, a 4-point race. You see the president.
Back up on the map, Giuseppe, is red.
Let's just put this into context. Number
It's
one,
red, but you see it white.
this was the name of the game.
Red.
16.
It's red.
No, right
We're not
here.
done.
Look,
We're not
right
done.
there.
Some of
It's
these states
white.
could go on
They
into
haven't
tomorrow,
called it.
but
I'm talking about Virginia. I'm doing Virginia red.
Then we're worried about an hour or two from now, is the president going to come out and say, I win? If he's still leading in those states.
I don't know what he's doing here, but down here, the CN projection is they've got it white right at the bottom of the screen.
I'm looking at the wrong map.
72. There are no surprises on this map so far. Everything we see filled in is the way we thought it would go coming into the night. There are also, though, if you think about out here, where we haven't counted votes yet because it's still early in the night, people are still voting. There's we don't think there are any more surprises out that way, if you will. Nevada was the one Clinton state the Trump campaign made a run. We'll see, but we expect that to stay Democratic, which is why things get interesting now. Again, we haven't called some of these close states, but this is the calculation.
I guess people in Nevada, in Las Vegas and Reno don't want to work.
This map and say, what do I take away to get him below 270 and to get me to 270? So Joe Biden wanted Florida. Not yet. We'll see. We'll keep counting. Doesn't look that way. Wanted North Carolina. Donald Trump has a lead right now. We'll see. We'll get to the finish line. Georgia got a lot of votes out. The Democrats had these opportunities. Can we get these states can we get a surge? We'll watch Georgia. We're still missing a lot of Democratic votes. Texas is filling in red. Again, we haven't called it. We have a ways to go, but it's filling in red right now. So far, you look like you're getting that, right? We're not done. We're not done in Arizona yet either. But as you project it out, so okay, now you got the president at 295. If you're not going to get Ohio, haven't called it yet. We're waiting. There's a possibility some votes out, North Carolina or Florida. Where do you go? Well, then we come back. Number one, let's just assume for the sake of argument, Joe Biden gets the congressional district here. Hard to see if there is a Trump election day surge. The president went out here and did a rally, but the Democrats are pretty confident they're going to pick up the one in the 2nd district of Nebraska. So let's do that for the hypothetical. We'll watch as it plays out. Then you're at 293 to 245. So then we come down to where we ended 4 years ago, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, right? And so Joe Biden, 1, 2 gets you to the finish line. You don't absolutely need Pennsylvania. If you win Maine's 2nd congressional district, if you win Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, and you hold Arizona, you can do it without Florida, without Georgia, without North Carolina, without Ohio, and without Pennsylvania. But you have to win these two, right? If you can win this as well, then it's game over. We've always known if Joe Biden could rebuild the blue wall, forgive me, Donald Trump would pay for it. The question is, can he make it happen when right now, if you look over here, again, we're early. This is where Democrats get nervous because they remember 2016. We cannot emphasize enough. We're nowhere close to the finish line in any of those states. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. We need Michigan could take until tomorrow. But we talked earlier about Joe Biden having the more menu options. Some of those menu options appear to be closing. We're not done yet, but that we still have, that we can't take Florida away. Still red over there.
Wolf looks pretty glum, doesn't he?
Georgia.
Doing a good job.
Many menu options coming into the night. That list is narrowing, which is why you get into tense
I
time.
want to check in with David Cherry. Taking a very close look at the vote in Pennsylvania right now. What are you seeing over there?
Yeah, just exactly what John was talking about. I know it's red on the map right now, but we gotta make sure we count the votes here. So what you see is Donald Trump leading Joe Biden in Pennsylvania with 32% of the vote in right now. Let's look at what we know about the early vote. Of that vote that's in, only 18% of it currently is early vote. And we know that Joe Biden is doing much better in the early vote. We expect that 18% to go all the way up to 45%. So there's a ton more early votes still to be counted here, and that could benefit Joe Biden in Pennsylvania. We just have to wait to see that early absentee mail vote come in and be counted. Well,
Very interesting. We're watching all these states, and this is a night like none other because of all the early voting, a record number of early voting that we've seen in some states taking a lot longer to count that early vote.
Right. Look, the battleground states are always complicated to begin with. Remember Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin 4 years ago. Remember Florida 4 years ago. Even North Carolina for a while we were looking at it, and then it's spaced out. So they're always complicated anyway. They're all the more complicated this time, and all the more difficult, especially for partisans who want to, who want their guy to win, right? And so let's just talk about what David was talking about. We come down here, Philadelphia County, Philadelphia City, and the counties around it. This is by far, it's 12% or more, depending on turnout, of the vote in Pennsylvania, 22%. So when I pull this back out and you see the state red, okay, again, you always want to be leading. At any point in the race, you like to be leading, but it's not contextual in the sense that we have nothing here. Let's just come over here to Montgomery County, 16%. Joe Biden at 89%. The suburban caller around Philadelphia is the name of the game. Democrats have to run up a huge lead. You come over here. Bucks County is the more conservative of the suburban counties around here. If you go back 4 years ago, you'll see this one 48-47, Bucks County 4 years ago. The challenge for Joe Biden is to try to run it up a little bit more, 50-48. That's about the same, more or less. But again, 12% there, 16% of the estimated vote here. Chester County, 25%. You come back to Delaware County, 16%. So this is where the overwhelming bulk of the votes, the way you get started in Pennsylvania is Philadelphia and the suburban caller around it.
With everything going on in Philadelphia, how is it
we're still in the single digits?
so heavily blue? It's hard to believe.
We got a long way to go. And so then you come over, you move over to the middle of the state.
Yeah.
52% here, Harrisburg. The president, we know the president is going to run it up in places like this. You get these counties here. 95%, of the vote in here. The president has 70, 68%. The president has 82. Not a lot of people live here, but again, this is how the president does it. In the smaller, more rural counties, he runs it up big. So the challenge again is we talked about Joe Biden not leading in Ohio
the
right now.
AP just gave Missouri to Trump. That's
can he be
good.
more competitive in places like Washington County right now? 50.9. One that a lot of people were looking at. There was a Trump rally here just the other day. Westmoreland County, 28% in 63 to 36 if you round it up. 64 to 33. It's pretty close. We'll see Biden maybe a little bit higher than Hillary Clinton 4 years ago. That could matter if it's very close. A long way to go.
Up with a
break. We have a lot more coming up right after this.
Result. Well, so far,
we have a noble purpose. We want to be known as America's mortgage. So two things are playing service. Some of us are giving
go to
all the freedoms that we have here in this country. For us at New Day to help those people at this point in time. It's a noble service.
Giuseppe, try MSNBC for a few minutes.
MSNBC, okay.
Yeah, let's get down with the crazy craze.
The Fox News decision desk can now project that President Trump will defeat former Vice President Joe Biden in the state of Utah. Not really a surprise there, but it ticks up into the president's column as we go towards 270. We are watching a lot of states that are kind of on the bubble here, and we're also looking at our voter analysis surveys that talk to about 150,000 Americans around the country.
So let's check in with Shannon Bream, who is here with more analysis.
I think Shannon is actually better than Martha. She has a show late in the evening.
Pages. Hi, Shannon.
Hey, Brett and Martha. So let's look at Florida, where it's very tight and it hasn't been called yet. If it does go for President Trump, here is going to be one of the keys why. Seniors are backing him. Now, this comes after concerns he might be losing them because of the way that he handled the coronavirus pandemic. Also this, Cuban voters are going for Trump, but more broadly, Hispanics as a voting bloc, they're behind Biden. 8 in 10 voters there in Florida say it's important to them that the next president shake up the political system. Now, that includes close to half who say it's very important to them. Those are voters who broke for Trump by more than 10 points. On the other hand, most Florida voters want the next president to look out for people like them. And those voters say that they favor Biden over Trump. 7 in 10 in the Sunshine State, the voters there believe that Donald Trump stands up for what he believes in. Now, those voters broke for the president by an almost 2-to-1 margin. Interestingly enough, though, the angry voters that made up such an important part of Trump's voters 4 years ago, well, they're now in Joe Biden's column by a wide margin. So
That's peculiar.
that's one of the key states.
That
We'll keep
is
watching them. Back to you
peculiar,
guys.
really peculiar.
Stuart Varney, host of Varney and Company on Fox Business Network, joins
Golden
us now.
pipe wrench.
Stuart, you've been watching this. We talked a little bit about the futures. We talked a little bit about the Chinese yuan.
Mostly peaceful riots.
We've seen a remarkable switch just in the last hour or so. First of all, the betting markets. About 2 hours ago, the betting was favoring Joe Biden to win. Now, the betting market gives Donald Trump a 65% chance of winning. So you've got a real switch there. If you look at the stock market, we're looking at a continuing strong rally. The NASDAQ, for example, that's the home of all those popular big-name technology companies. That is up 3.5%. That is a whopping great big gain for that particular index. Stock prices across the board on the upside as we speak. Look at it right now. The President Trump seems to be putting in a strong showing, and investors like that. So the gains of the stock market that we saw on Monday and Tuesday, 1,000 points up on the Dow, that is holding. And Brett, I got to tell you, this is very important to ordinary people, if I can put it like that. Investing is no longer the area just for the rich and the elites. 100 million Americans are now investors in the market through 401ks and IRAs. And they are sitting on some very nice gains brought to them during the Trump rally of the last 4 years. They don't want to see those gains go away. If, for example, you had $100,000 in your 401k 4 years ago, you were doing well. Now you've probably got 140,000 in your 401k, and you want to keep that gain. So what we're seeing at the moment is the market suggesting that Donald Trump will win. The betting market suggesting that Donald Trump will win. It frankly reminds me a lot of 2016, where things turned around in the middle of the night. I think we're seeing that right now.
Nice.
We do have to pump our brakes because we have a long way to go. Ohio, North Carolina, very tight. Pennsylvania will not be decided tonight because of all of those ballots. So there's still a lot to work out, but you're right. All of those places seem to be reacting.
So, Jim, are you available to come on the Wisdom Circle, which we'll repurpose for tomorrow as election coverage from noon to 11 to 1 your time?
President Trump has said pretty much everywhere he goes.
Yes,
Find ourselves in another lockdown. Because that's not the case.
There's a chance I may not have all the stories ready for our show. Could we even substitute what we do for Need to Know?
Oh, you want to just do that as Need to Know? Yeah, why not? I tape everything, so yeah, we could easily do that.
That works. That works well for me, Giuseppe. I can stay for longer now, but I don't know if you guys are able to.
Well, why don't we stay till the top of the hour when they look at the West Coast, and then maybe wrap it up then.
Okay. I'm very pleased with these late developments.
It's far too close to call, and we're in Pennsylvania, as Brett's saying. You're probably going
Yeah,
to
it's interesting. It's definitely interesting.
to get a result out of there. Nonetheless,
The
investors like what they see and are pushing stock prices higher.
Yeah, Heath is saying that Jim has an echo. I'm hearing that too.
That's what happens on the market.
Yeah, we're getting an echo from you, definitely, Scorpio.
From me?
Yeah.
Thank you, Stuart.
Huh.
Great to
I don't hear an echo from
So the
Scorpio.
Fox Decision Desk can now project that former Vice
I
President
am.
Biden will defeat President Trump in New Hampshire. Let's put
Well,
that
that's
up
no
and,
surprise.
see the impact of that on the overall numbers here. Biden 53%, 44%. As we take a look at the big picture here, you've got President Trump with 115, Joe Biden with 133. You know, New Hampshire was a state that the president lost by just close to 3,000 votes last time around. And we've talked about this, but there were a number of states that early on the Trump team was looking at as places that they could turn into Trump states, places like New Mexico, Nevada, places like Minnesota, New Hampshire. So this is the first one of those four that we're seeing tonight, and it's clear that Joe Biden is very comfortably holding the lead, even more so than Hillary Clinton did.
And the president made a stop in New Hampshire, at least one. I know the vice president went there as well. We're back with our panel. Britt, what are you seeing right now? What are you feeling right now?
A couple of things. The betting odds had once gotten up as high as 78% for Trump. They dialed back to 60-something now at about 70. So he's still the favorite of people who are betting their money tonight.
But put the caveat on that, because I've had people asking me, what do the Vegas casinos have better pollsters than the
No,
Washington types? It's just market money.
It's market money. I mean, that's what this is about. I mean, Stuart made the point. I mean, people are betting their money in stocks, and people in China are worried about the yuan, and the trend is in that direction. Now, look, we got a long way to go tonight.
Yeah.
But at a minimum, I think it's fair to say that a lot of what the pollsters were telling us about how this was going to go, and there were many that had, Trump losing on a bunch of these southern states and
Florida +5.
Florida,
Biden.
yeah, exactly. They're off again, and we've been through this before. We all thought, that the pollsters who made those projections in the states 4 years ago and got it so badly wrong would have it figured out by now. Trump may not win, but he certainly made them look bad tonight in a bunch of states, including, as you point out, Florida being one of the main ones.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that seems clear, Dana, is that we talked about the fact that this was either going to be a landslide for Biden. That was the one option that was on the table,
Landslide.
or a really tight race, and it's looking like it's shaping up to be the latter.
I think, any idea that there was going to be a blue tidal wave, that is absolutely impossible now, it looks like, and especially because you see North Carolina so close. And if Tillis is able to win his seat there, because think about it, Cal Cunningham, the Democratic challenger, he had a big sex scandal about a month ago on the same day that Tillis comes down with COVID. And what happened? Tillis stepped on the gas in order to campaign. Cunningham really kind of went silent. He didn't want to answer questions or anything. And so it's almost like he sat on that lead and he watched it fade. And to the point about New Hampshire, I have really thought that Trump would be able to win New Hampshire, given that he'd only lost it by 2,700 votes. And there was so much enthusiasm up there for him. But think about what the campaign manager, Bill Stepien, did for President Trump. Takes a look at that and says, that might not work. But where did they focus? Way down in Florida. And you think about Donna Shalala, who was the former Secretary of Health and Human Services, and then she's a congresswoman. She lost her seat tonight, the Democrat.
Good.
Maria
Oh,
Salazar, the
good.
Republican challenger, is going to pick up that seat. Now, can they replicate that kind of support from Latinos and Cubans from that Miami-Dade area across other places? Possibly so, and that could be a big difference maker between when some of these states come down to the wire like they are.
Juan, your thoughts?
Well, I'm curious. I mean,
Yeah, but
I
a
think
Cuban isn't the same thing as a Mexican.
early on, we can see what they call blue.
This guy is a liberal apologist here.
Mirage.
Oh yeah, he's an idiot.
Well, it's different haze. But
sounds like a stripper.
No. It sounds like Jimi Hendrix.
Wait a second.
But
It's not even midnight.
Blue haze.
I don't know where you've been.
She's playing somewhere.
But the point that I'm trying to make is mail-in ballots. I still am at a puzzle as to when that cache of votes gets counted. And we have not been accounting for that. Now, the projection.
What do you mean we haven't been accounting for?
Well,
we haven't called those races.
Right, that's why. But if you could think about the clear direction of this night in the direction of President Trump, it would seem to me that you would also say, well, gee, turnout seems to have gone up on both sides. And the president's strategy was to have big vote tonight, election night, for him. And we may be seeing some of that reflected. The question is then, where are those mail-in ballots? Did they exist if, in fact, turnout is up, as we believe, on both the Republican and Democratic side?
Right. And I still think that there is a question in some of these states about the absentee ballots that have not come back.
Yeah.
And we're talking about tens of thousands.
Remember my point about a lot of Democrats voting for Trump.
That's why it's to me feels like that, Chris, that purple haze.
Okay, all right, we're moving on.
But I just feel
We're
like
moving on.
Trying to create wiggle room for the Democrats.
I do think that clearly President Trump's doing much better than I would have anticipated.
All right, Chris, let's keep it PG-13. What do you
Okay.
got?
I think this night is totally up for grabs still. I agree that the early, easy Biden victory is off the board, but that was one of three scenarios. The other scenario was
Wow, this guy's a genius.
Biden win and a narrow Trump win. And those both are still absolutely open. And, you know, while it sure looks like Biden is going to lose Florida, the fact that the Fox News decision team hasn't called Florida yet says to me, maybe it's a small margin, but there's still up for grabs. The fact that North Carolina is too close to call, that Georgia is, because
they're all going to go for
we haven't really gotten anything firm on
You always
Pennsylvania or
get
Michigan or
the big
Wisconsin
cities
or
first.
Arizona.
Right. So that's why his
basically, if
lead
it
is
were a tennis
growing,
match,
Trump's
I'm not gonna
lead,
switch from
because
my
they're getting the
each side is
rural
holding
votes
serve.
now.
And they're
I
winning.
agree.
We're expected to win, and the states that were up for grabs are still up for grabs. I think the story of this night is really not been told yet.
Yeah, which is exactly what we were told from the very beginning, to sort of go slowly and be patient and wait for
This
these
was the main opponent he defeated in the first round.
counted, their paper, they've got to be opened up and all of that. Just with regard to Georgia, Fulton County is now going to stop counting at 10:30 p.m.
I can see Chris Wallace wearing a pink sweater over his shoulders and sipping on a wine spritzer with a little umbrella in it.
You got to go nonstop until all the ballots are counted.
No Philadelphia count, no Fulton County count until tomorrow. So those are huge chunks of votes in both of those states.
So we got North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Iowa, all seem to be toss-ups still at this hour, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
And we still haven't called Florida, right?
We have not. But, somebody on this
Getting a little
desk
lonely.
called Florida and then had to take it back 20 years ago.
I can't imagine that.
I think we may have a
We're still reeling from it.
And the call turned out to be right.
Oh, check this out.
Yeah, I'm just
exactly.
37 days.
I'm just
took them a few days
37
to
days
catch up to
later,
you.
but it turned out right.
It was right all wrong.
All right, 4 more states.
Yeah, very good. Very good, Timbo.
Info.
Very good.
The other side of the break.
Interesting,
This is a
Timbo.
great,
Majority in the House.
Right. Why is the MSM the authority?
Yeah, why are they the authority on anything?
yeah, exactly.
It's like, why is Anthony Fauci the top epidemiologist or whatever?
Yeah, man, that's it. Let's see what. So going back to this interactive map, yeah, he I don't know. I mean, it looks like even though they're too close to call, it sure looks like Trump has the better path to victory than Biden, looking at these states that we're not knocking off yet.
Yes, I agree. Yes, I agree. And look how
Unless we
far
wake up tomorrow and lots of mail-in votes were counted overnight, and guess what?
Yeah, that's true.
But it's looking like, I agree. I think things are looking pretty positive here.
Yep. It's if only I would love to see Minnesota show its anger over the communist bullshit they've suffered through in that state.
Well, look, Giuseppe, we just got a report from Kenosha, County, where Kenosha is located, and they went by a much larger margin for Trump. Like that could happen in Minnesota. I think so.
Yeah, there you go. Golden pipe wrench, man. He's working it. That's excellent info.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see if anybody's here we go. CNN.
Let's just say for the sake of argument, you get one of these. We're still waiting on 2 of those districts there. Let's just say you get one of them, right? So then you're looking here, 245. So what do you need, right? Do the math. You need 25. That would get you knocking on the door because that's 20, right? This is the state of these 3 states in the blue wall. That's the one the Trump campaign feels more confident about. That would be enough. Michigan and Wisconsin would get Joe Biden to 271 if he got these 2 congressional districts plus Arizona. The math gets interesting if the president can hold. Bring it out here. Sorry, now I got to fill them all in, but that's okay. Just fill them all in and come back. President does that. You think one congressional district could decide an American presidential election? Doesn't happen that often, but it is possible. This is where, again, if the possibilities, the menu at the beginning of the night, maybe we get Florida. In a dream world, we get Texas. Maybe Ohio's competitive. We think we can get North Carolina. At the moment, none of that is there. We're not done. It's possible it comes back. At the moment, none of that is there. So now your numbers crunchers are getting into the tougher math, the more difficult math, and the different scenarios. And trust me, they're calling into that congressional district. They're calling into that congressional district, and they're calling in a fury into these because now we're into.
I would think that Michigan will go red.
Those 3 states, the so-called blue wall
hatred
states,
for Whitmer.
Pennsylvania, Michigan.
Yeah.
There's still plenty of outstanding votes.
Plenty of votes. Again, we're going to say this repeatedly, and some people at home might not like that we say it repeatedly.
And a lot of the early vote is outstanding too, where Democrats will do well.
It is, which is why, as I come back over here, as you're watching the map throughout the night, in any election, again, we are 10:55. In any presidential election that's close, we're just getting started. We are just getting started. That would be the case 4 years ago, 2004. Pick your close election. That's the case. This year's even more different because of the 3 different ways of voting.
They got Michigan red there.
Each state is handling that, right? The mail-in vote, the in-person early vote. And so here you go. We're going to look at it. 40% in. You see that big lead for Donald Trump. If you're a Republican, you have every reason to be happy about that. But you also need to have the context. You have to have the context. You come down here. This is Montgomery County, one of the big suburbs around Philadelphia, 29%. You go into Philadelphia, which is the biggest basket of votes, predominantly Democratic. Turnout here is absolutely key. We'll see if Democrats can deliver, but you're only 20% of the votes.
Man, if I lived in Philly, I'd be so pissed at that Black Lives Matter bullshit.
But you're still at 12% of the vote. Move out here, Chester County. This is where most of the votes are in Pennsylvania. Philadelphia and the suburbs that surround it, 30%. So you just have a long way to go. And we know, David Chalian told us earlier, a lot of the votes that are missing are the early votes, which we believe are disproportionately Democrat. And even if we were just counting for one set of votes, even if we were just waiting for all the votes counted today, what we have from this part of the state is so low that you just can't make conclusions. You just can't. We have to wait and see. And it looks good. The map looks at first glance to Republicans, but we're just nowhere near the finish line, nor are we in Michigan. 39% of the estimate, 54 to 43. You think that's a big number. If you remember how close this was 4 years ago, 10,000 votes, right? 10,000 votes decided this state 4 years ago. So it is just unrealistic. Even if the president's having a very good night, it's unrealistic that he's going to win Michigan by 238,000 votes. If he wins Michigan again, maybe it's by more than 10,000 votes, but it's not going to be by 238,000 votes. We just know that. So when you see that number, that's when you know this is the anomaly of 2020 and how we count votes, and we need to be patient.
Let's take a look at Arizona.
Let's go out west, because this would be, so far, this would be the flip. This would be a change. We're up to 75%, 208,000 vote lead and some change there. Again, 54% to 45%. If you go back, not since Bill Clinton as a Democrat won this state, and in 2016, not a huge win by any means. This is why the Democrats wanted to compete this year. Arizona is trending demographically, and the Democrats think this year, demographics plus the suburban revolt is what gets you there. 1.2 million votes won it 4 years ago.
Suburban revolt. What was that?
Joe Biden already has that, and we're still counting votes there. Again, turnout up across America.
You think the suburban vote would be
that looks good.
Republican because of the porous border?
Maricopa County,
Exactly.
7%. If this
Well,
holds
it's
up,
the illegal aliens voting.
60% plus of your votes are. If you keep a 10-point margin in Maricopa County with high turnout like this, you're going to win the state of Arizona. But we're not done yet as we do it. But as we go through the race to 270, and you're Joe Biden, Donald Trump had 306 last time. You need to take away. It's simple. Just do the subtraction. And where do you get them? Arizona would be a start, an important start. It's protection, if you will. It's a safety blanket, but that's it. That's the name of the game. It was 4 years ago, and it sure looks like it's about to be for the rest of tonight and into tomorrow. That's the guess. That's the guess, Wolf, as you go through it.
It's amazing to me how similar.
Getting a lot of text.
An instant replay of 4 years ago.
Whoa, what's happening in Virginia?
Right.
Again, 153,000 votes ahead.
Yeah, 4 years ago, Hillary thought she was going to be coronated.
Virginia, look at this. That's
We're still waiting. It's not that we could hop in the car and drive over there and be there in 15 minutes. But Fairfax County, Virginia, there's something going on. In Fairfax County, Virginia, we only have 28% of the vote, and it's been that way for a long time. This is a giant basket of Democratic votes. If you follow governor's races, you follow Mark Warner's Senate campaign a couple of years ago, that's the way it's gone. All of a sudden, a big
I
dump
live
of
in
votes come in,
Fairfax
but we're gonna keep
County.
watching that because it's interesting. Just want to check down here in North Carolina again, 50 to 49 when you're
They're really
rounded up. 69,000 votes. Again, Republicans feel good about this, but we'll keep counting and see what happens in North Carolina. One more time, just want to look at normally the closest of all battlegrounds, 94% in Florida, 51-47 there in Florida. Again, you're looking at the map. There's a lot of red, including in places that the Biden campaign was hopeful it could turn blue. You see Iowa's blue right now. We're not sure if that will last. It's competitive, though. It's a fun one to watch as we go through the night. Still a lot of math to do, Wolf.
Here we go. Golden Pipe Wrench, more great info.
They're nervous on both sides. Voting is about to end in 4 states out west. That includes the biggest prize of all. We're talking about California. It has 55 of the 78
California
at stake this hour. All right, we have some projections right now. CNN projects that Joe Biden will win the state of California. That's the biggest prize at the Electoral College.
That's a shocker.
Votes.
Yeah,
Biden
what a
will win
shock
California, beats Trump in California. CNN also projects that Biden will win in Washington State, 12 electoral votes. He beats Trump in Washington State. CNN also projects Biden will win in the state of Oregon, 7 electoral votes.
Going along with all the garbage that's taking place in Portland and Seattle.
Donald Trump right now, CNN projects that Donald Trump will win the state of Wyoming. That's 3 electoral votes. In Idaho, too early to call, 4 electoral votes in Idaho. We cannot make a projection there. Let's take a look at the Electoral College map, see where it stands right now. Right now, Biden has a wide lead. He has 192 Electoral College votes. Trump has 108. States where things stand. Let's start in Pennsylvania. 41% of the estimated vote is now in. Trump has seemingly a pretty comfortable 444,000 vote lead over Biden, 56.8% to 41.5%. In Michigan right now, 39% of the estimated vote is in. Trump has a significant lead there right now as well, 239,000 vote, but it's relatively early. 39% of the estimated vote is in, and the early vote, which skews Democratic, is not yet in. In Wisconsin, 42% of the vote is in. Look at how close it is. Trump has a 25,000 vote lead over Biden, 50% to 48.3%, 10 electoral votes in Wisconsin. In Arizona, 75% of the vote is in, and Biden has a significant lead. In Arizona, Trump 53.7% to 45%.
That's a good
11
line.
electoral votes at stake over there. Let's go back to John King. All right, so Biden has a significant 192 to 108 lead in the all-important Electoral College battle.
And the West Coast, which again, when I started doing this many years ago,
Nobody
this was competitive
thought it
territory.
would go any
Not anymore.
different.
Washington, Oregon, California, locks.
Shows how they just gave this political spin.
They're not competitive anymore.
Big move
Just to raise money.
Coast,
92
now
Now
Florida or Georgia.
This is
you're going to go to Trump.
I hate to say it this way, but it's easy for a Democrat to get to 192. It's just easy given the, Illinois.
Yeah, like you said, it's easy. What was gonna change that? I mean, it should have changed with the insanity in
They're just
Oregon.
Presumption. They haven't counted the votes out there. They're just presuming.
Right. That's a good point.
We'll watch and we'll count as we go. That was a Trump state. Joe Biden is leading right now there. If it holds that way, out here, look at this. Colorado, New Mexico, The West Coast will be good to the Democrats in the Southwest.
This is the PSYOP.
So that would get you to 209. So then you come this way, you're looking at the map, right? Where are the Clinton states? That was a Clinton state, right? So you think that's going to happen for you. And you keep looking at the map here. Virginia, which is really interesting right now, it is still red. You just assume, and we'll see if it's a change. If it's that kind of a night, it's that kind of a night. But you assume that one's going to come back into the fold, and they're just waiting for Democratic votes to come in. They're having a problem in the county.
We're making a lot of assumptions.
And you assume
we're getting a lot of assumptions. Biden at 270 plus.
Spain does it by congressional.
They're trying to shoehorn a Biden victory.
We're watching.
He's trying to show Biden's
I
path.
believe a few other things about
We're
tonight.
watching a PSYOP.
We go through, but let's, for the sake of argument, give it to him. So then you're up to 236.
Well, should we
right?
switch over
Maybe
to
they
Fox?
get one in Nebraska. Let's just keep that off the table right now. Let's just wait and see how you play. So you're at 236.
CNN has turned to bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, where's Fox? Here's Fox.
Washington, Senator John James, if he wins, in addition to which it would make the Democrats' chances of taking over control of the Senate that much harder. We've had an even split. Colorado went from Republican to Democrat. Alabama went from Democrat to Republican. So the 53-47.
I'm going to interrupt you.
Sure.
We're going to make a big call right here. The Fox News decision desk can now project that President Donald Trump will win the state of 29 electoral
He
votes.
had to have that
And
one.
he will win it convincingly.
Absolutely. 51.3 and 47.8 for President Trump and Joe Biden, respectively. Joe Biden spent a fair amount of time in Florida. The president put a huge press in Florida, spent a lot of time there. It's his home state, as he refers to it these days, with his home there in Palm Beach. We've seen a great turnout for him among seniors, among Hispanic voters, very strong support for the president among Cuban Americans. A lot has been said about his effort to reach them with stories about socialism and the prospect for a more socialistic government in this country, something that resonated quite a bit with Venezuelan and Cuban residents in the state of Florida. So, it's obviously a very interesting dichotomy, the state of Florida, Brett, as you take a look at it. And it is a real cross-section of Americans. So many people move from New York there. So many people move from all over the country there.
They're not even giving him Texas, for God's sake.
Of course, in light of the
You'll get Texas, Georgia, North Carolina.
to get away from
never
them,
left.
and never left. And so one wonders going forward how much the demographics of the state of Florida will change. But I think, we're looking at things tonight that we thought it was thought for a while that Trump might lose the elderly vote. That appears in a meaningful, big way. It appears that that's not happening. And I don't know how many people, everybody thought, I guess, that he would do better among Hispanics in Florida than he had before, but not to the extent that he has. And that may indeed tell the tale, that he held his own with the seniors and did so well with Hispanic voters, which may prove a trend that we'll see in other states as well.
Right.
A word about the Senate here. Either way this goes for the presidential race, the Senate will be critical. And in fact, if Joe Biden wins, in my opinion, if Joe Biden wins, it will be a benefit to him if the Democrats don't get the Senate. And the reason I say that is that Biden will be under tremendous pressure from his party's left wing to act out the agenda that he agreed to with Bernie Sanders. Biden, by temperament and instinct, I think won't particularly want to do that. But he's not the strongest guy that ever lived, and he will be. If his party has control of everything.
That's what we wanted a president, a weak leader,
and will block that. I think that will leave him in better position going forward. The other side of that story is that if Trump wins and the Democrats control the Senate, I think it'll be pretty stymied there between the House and the Senate for him going forward, and that would be true even if the Senate stays Republican. So what the next 2 years are going to look like, a lot will depend on how.
If President Trump were to win and lose the Senate, you'd be looking at the kind of history that we've seen from the House across both houses. And it's worth pointing out as well.
It would be gridlock, which people may like.
Yeah, with Florida. If Florida was a must-win state for President Trump.
Absolutely.
So he has checked that box successfully, and it's as we begin the process here of going through these battlegrounds.
What
No Republican has won the White House without winning Florida.
Correct. And what strikes me out of Florida, we early in the evening, I was talking about the Latino vote. Hillary Clinton did 10 points worse, 10 points worse in Miami-Dade. And tonight, Donald Trump went 10 points lower than that. I mean, so the Latino vote has gone for Donald Trump in an astounding way, to my mind, but it's concentrated in Miami-Dade among those Cuban-American voters. If you look just down the line in Florida, you would see Latino men 59-39 Biden, women 64-34. And you might think, oh, well, gee, they went for Biden. But in fact, as I'm trying to explain, those numbers are 10% lower than what Hillary Clinton achieved. So they actually, Donald Trump did better here in this race than he did in 2016 in those races. The other point that strikes me at this juncture in the evening, Martha, is if you're thinking about Pennsylvania and Michigan as outstanding at this point, that the votes are not being counted, we're really getting into the issue of whether or not how the courts are going to deal with this, which votes are going to be counted, which votes are not going to be counted.
You know, what he's saying is the arrogance that, oh, if you're black or brown, you got to vote Democrat. And it's, as we've talked on the shows the last couple of weeks, people don't like to be pigeonholed as stupid. And a lot of Mexicans, Cubans, Central Americans, they're over here and they're making a life for themselves. They're not going to be a Democrat just because they're told to be, right?
I follow this guy quite a lot, and he is a left-wing shill.
Campaign.
Yeah, yeah.
And why is he talking about the courts getting involved?
Tried to block some of the voting post-election in Pennsylvania. They've lost so far, but the president talked about that a lot on the campaign trail. What he said was a terrible decision by the Supreme Court to allow counting of the ballots after Election Day in Pennsylvania. That will end up back in the courts. And, you know, and you now have a different court because Amy Coney Barrett is going to be on there. She wasn't making those decisions in the first place.
Yeah,
so,
that's Soros.
because she wasn't on the court yet. So
is an evil SOB.
as much as we don't
sure.
want it to happen, a lot of this may be litigated in the courts.
I think, listen, you've got Pennsylvania, you've got North Carolina, you've got Ohio. Ohio's starting to look a little bit better for President Trump. North Carolina seems like it's looking a little bit better for Joe Biden. But again, Pennsylvania is not going to be decided tonight. But on Florida, both campaigns spent a lot of capital in Florida, not just ads, but actual time.
Absolutely.
Going there.
Absolutely. The Biden was there. What was it? Thursday? I think Thursday this week. Obama went down on Monday. And, you know, looking at this number, Hillary Clinton lost Florida 4 years ago by 1.2 points. Trump tripled his margin with over Biden as to what he had beaten.
Chris, if you were trying to pick out a state where people would be most concerned about coronavirus, Florida, with a heavy senior population, would seem to be that state. And obviously that's an issue that we all believe cut heavily in favor of Joe Biden. And yet Trump carries the state and does better than he did 4 years ago.
I'm now going to get myself in
because the
trouble.
state is open and people can live their lives.
Right. All night. And the Fox News voter analysis tends to show, you know, the women, big margin for Biden, men much more close. So, I mean, if you look at these numbers, it would seem in almost every state that Biden was headed for victory. The actual votes haven't counted it, which makes me think that a poll is one thing, an actual turnout on Election Day. And
brilliant.
And
yeah, what a smart guy.
The ground
figure this out. We're going to explain that voter voting fraudulent.
It also raises the question that some of these people may have been among those who were shy Trump voters, including women, who didn't want to tell anybody they were going to vote for Trump. Because among women, he was thought to be unpopular, and he was thought to have offended more women than he ever did men, and men liking him better. So
which, Dana, may be more of an issue this time than in 2016.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, I think for everybody, right? I mean,
but isn't Trump the most handsome president since Kennedy? Or
Trump solidified his support. And I also think, look, Laura Trump and the folks on the campaign, Kimberly Guilfoyle, you think Mercedes Schlapp, they had that whole Women for Trump, and they made a concentrated effort. They knew they weren't going to win all women. They knew they were going to lose a significant amount. But it'll be interesting to pick through all the bones and see how that really turned out. But I keep going back to this thing. I think parents, moms, worried about children and not being able to go back to school, seeing them lose an entire year of interaction with their friends, not being able to do their sports, possibly losing ground on a competitive level when we're in a very competitive world. And they're worried about that. I think maybe that might have something to do with it.
And it's possible that those things, and we're only looking at one of these battleground states so far in Florida, but it's possible that, when you look at that, the incumbency also plays a role.
It's hard to beat an incumbent.
It is very hard to beat an incumbent. The only time it's happened in recent history, Ronald Reagan and Bill Clinton, enormous personalities, able to totally change the dynamic of the presidential race and get voters to say, I'm going to leave this person behind and switch gears and go with this person. So as difficult as President Trump is for some voters, it looks like, at least in Florida, that dynamic of people decided just to stick with the horse, or to stick with the one who brought him to the dance, or whatever.
I just think
the horse
that
brought him to the dance.
Ride him. But I think we are in a different kind of presidential race. I mean, you make the point that it's hard to beat incumbents, that you don't see it very often. But I think that President Trump is his own, kind of a sui generis when it comes to presidential incumbents. He has so much going against him in terms of the virus. And in my mind, so much in terms of his behavior, chaotic, divisive, and all the rest. But I think there are people, and if you look at these numbers, even as Chris would question them, you see white men really stick with President Trump no matter what. The question then becomes the level at which white women vote for Trump. If you look at, as I was talking to you earlier about the Florida race, the Latinos have clearly, they still go for Biden, but by a lesser margin than even Hillary Clinton, that they favored Hillary Clinton. So to me, we come back to the idea that Trump is almost like a brand. It's in some ways he's impermeable. I mean, it's Teflon.
Gee, no kidding.
I don't quite
He just figured it out.
I think it's different.
Who would have thought of that? Trump being a brand. Who would have thought of that?
In these times, so much anxiety, and it looks like some people just say, "That's my guy."
This guy is a dim bulb.
And
dim bulb.
But again, doesn't change the dynamic where we thought it was going to go. Nobody's taken one that's a surprising.
Giuseppe, I don't want to take advantage of you guys. You want to stay up all night. I'm going to watch more of this. I'll report on it tomorrow. But we can call it
now. Are outperforming their
why don't we let's
and
let's
so they
turn
are
this
looking at races
down
like
and just to wrap it up by looking at this. Looking at this. So to me, the only way Biden steals this is with this mail-in ballot bullshit, right? So all of a sudden, with mail-in ballots, PA is his, and they're.
Remember, that was the plan all along, Giuseppe, was to use mail-in ballots to steal the election.
Right. Definitely.
And then you give Virginia, even though it should be red-blue, that gets him to 247, and then hard to believe.
I think Virginia's going to wind up red.
Well, I'm just looking at possible things that are stolen. Arizona, Nevada, that gets Biden at 264. So then Wisconsin becomes the decider. Either Trump wins it.
That's a plausible scenario. Trump's going to win it. Maybe it'll be my vote.
That'd be awesome. So looking at this scenario, Wisconsin decides it.
What about Alaska?
That's a red Republican,
okay.
And white is blue. So how funny, but I don't know. I mean, to me, this burn, loot, and murder bullshit and this whole Antifa Bolshevik 2.0 horse shit. I can't believe that the decent people of Pennsylvania are going to vote their affirmation for that. I find it hard to believe Wisconsin will do that, but I guess we'll see, right?
No, Wisconsin's going to go for Trump.
And then if he does, there it is. It's a close one, 273 to 264, but I don't know. My gut tells me that PA is going to go for Trump.
And I think Virginia is going to go for Trump. And, we've already got North Carolina shown there.
So at that point, Trump 293, Biden 244. So if you flip one of those, it looks like the only way Biden wins is by stealing it with this mail-in ballot bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, don't underestimate it. Scorpio has been right to be cautious all along.
Yep. All right. Well, what a great coverage. The viewers seem to enjoy it. I was getting text from some friends who watched it and liked it. We thank them for watching us, and tune in tomorrow at noon Eastern, 11 Central. We're going to repurpose our Revolution Radio show, which we simulcast, into an election follow-up, and we'll see if we know who the next president of the United States is. And I would sure prefer Donald Trump over Kamala Harris. That's how I'm
I think that's the bottom line. And the real story of the day is how the mainstream media manipulated, suppressed information that would have made this a clean sweep for the most deserving candidate.
That is an excellent point. What a bunch of dastardly bastardlies for not doing their job as a journalist. I mean, we've been doing their job.
These people are traitors to the United States. Traitors to the United States.
Yeah.
We've been doing their job, and we're severely underpaid.
Yeah, I'll say.
That's right.
All right, fellas, great work, and we'll reconvene tomorrow in the late morning.
And we'll bring our interactive map.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'll bookmark it. Okay.
You got it.
Cool.
Okay, good night,
Yeah,
everyone.
we'll do a lot better.
Thank you all for watching.
Yeah,